Hello, God, it's so great to see you. Woo! Love you, Jacksonville. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. God, it's so fun seeing all of you. You know, I was talking to people backstage about how I said I needed to get out on this tour. I needed to get out on the road. I needed, like, to see you, and you needed to see me, and we needed to be together right now. And it's been even better than I thought it was gonna be. It's such a feeling being up here and actually seeing the people who listen to the show and make it possible for me to do the show every day, and that's all of you. People say, oh, thank you so much for what you do. And I say, thank you for making it possible for me to do a job I love and to set the record straight on so many things. I love you too. And listen, what's on my mind tonight is that we are making progress, okay? It was 1 year ago, almost exactly, that we were leading up to Election Day, right? The polls were disturbingly close, and we weren't sure what was gonna happen. And what did we see in campaign 2024 on Team Dem? We saw Oprah, right? Yes, boo. We saw a parade of celebrities come out, like rappers who are now we know are getting paid big dollars to show up at her campaign rallies and endorse her. And person after person in every election. It could have been the one in 2024 with her or with Obama earlier. The celebs always line up and they do their little thing and they think they're relevant. And the Julia Roberts ad, you know, where they showed the Republican wife like disobeying her husband and like clicking it for Kamala. They totally misunderstand our side of the aisle, right? Like, we're gonna get beaten by our husbands if we don't vote the way they want us to. That is a true Democrat's view of conservatives. So there were celebrities everywhere doing this, and I think on our team we're like, yeah, we're used to this. We don't care what they think. Like, I guess only Democrats care what they think. And Democrats did care what they thought not so long ago, but they don't anymore. And one of the great things about the internet is it's totally democratized, like, celebrity, and we really don't give a shit what they say at all because they're ubiquitous, right? And even the left is starting to feel that way. And I'm going to give you two examples that have made me very happy. Because in this past year, the left has realized that they don't have the power to move votes on their side either anymore. And these celebrities, it's wonderful, it's working just as it should, are shrinking away from politics more and more and realizing they need to stay in their damn lane. Right? We're sick of them ruining our movies by coming out and showing their Trump derangement syndrome. Why can't we watch a movie without knowing how much they hate us? Right? The left never has that problem. Because even when you have somebody declare that they're conservative and they're an actor, they're never nasty about it. Like, they're sweet. You know, maybe like a Dennis Quaid who's like, I really love the Gipper. He was the best president of my lifetime, and I'm going to star in Reagan. That's as far as most of them go. You know, occasionally you get like the John Voight or the James Woods. But that's a unicorn. You know, when they're that strong and they come out and they really make the case. More often it's somebody who's like, I'm an independent. We all know what that is. So, but now we're starting to see the left get shamed. The left celebrities get shamed out of being too outspoken. I'm going to give you two examples. All right, I'm going to start with, I don't know if you saw it. You know Jennifer Lawrence, right? She's a huge star. She gave an interview to the New York Times just this past weekend, I think it was. And there was an extraordinary moment where, of course, they tried to get into her politics, and she is left. She's made that very clear. And listen to how she answered. I'm going to play a soundbite. Watch this.
You have been politically outspoken in the past. Mm-hmm. In the first Trump administration, you know, you had a lot to say. I'm curious how you feel about talking out now.
I don't really know if I should.
No, you shouldn't.
I think, like, the first Trump administration was so wild, and just how can we let this stand? Like, I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off. But as we've learned, election after election, celebrities do not make a difference whatsoever on who people vote for. And so then what am I doing? I'm just sharing my opinion on something that's gonna just add fuel to a fire that's ripping the country apart. I mean, we are so divided.
Yes. Guess who taught her that lesson? All of you. Honestly, it's like she realizes now, right? It's, to steal a phrase, pissing into the wind when they come out. And what do? They hurt their own careers. They embarrass themselves. They alienate half the country. And she goes on to say that maybe I'll just express my opinions through my art. Thank you. That's all we ever asked. Then we can choose whether to go to that movie or not. But, and you know, it may be some woke thing that we think is terrible, it may be some great thing, but if we go to see something that is appealing to us as right-wing people or independent people, we don't want to be constantly thinking about how much you loathe us, Ben Affleck, right? So she got the lesson. And then just today, there was another moment with Sydney Sweeney. You've heard of her. I'm sure the men in the audience are, have you ever heard of Sydney Sweeney? Yeah. And I'm gonna save the Sydney Sweeney moment for when my guests come out, and we'll talk about why it's equally encouraging. All right, so the point is we are winning. These loudmouth celebrities have gotten the message, sit down, shut up, and act. That's it, right? We're not listening to you anymore, and the great democratizer of the internet has taught them that them being ubiquitous has been bad for their political power, but great for the promo of their careers, and they have to choose. So right on us. Let's be honest, America can still be a dangerous place, and you cannot afford to wait for help when you need it. Sure, you could use a firearm, but in today's America, defending yourself with deadly force could have legal consequences. According to FBI data, 99.9% of all altercations do not require lethal force, and that's exactly why many are turning to Byrna. Byrna is proudly American, hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. These less lethal self-defense launchers are trusted by hundreds of government agencies, law enforcement departments, and private security companies. Over 600,000 Byrna pistols have been sold, most to private citizens who refuse to be victims and want to shore up their self-defense plans. Byrna launchers fire rock-hard kinetic rounds and also powerful tear gas and pepper projectiles, capable of stopping a threat from up to 60 feet away. No background checks, no waiting periods, and Byrna can ship straight to your door. Take responsibility. Protect your future. Visit Byrna.com right now, or your local Sportsman's Warehouse. That's BYRNA.com, or your local Sportsman's Warehouse. Visit now and be prepared to defend. Okay, we're going to take a couple of questions before we get started. That's been super fun getting to hear from all of you guys and what's on your mind. So I think we're starting a line over there. Yeah, go on over. We'll get in as many as we can, and then we'll get to our guests.
Hi, Megan.
Hi.
Leanne Johnson from Winter Park, Florida, and I followed you for a long time.
A lot of fans here, Leanne.
Welcome to Florida.
Thank you for having us.
The Freedom State. And I'm just... Woo!
I wouldn't know about that. I live in Connecticut.
I'm just wondering, how do we unite our Republicans in the conservative movement that we're not fighting amongst each other
Thank you.
for one goal, to defeat the Democrats?
Yes, Leanne. Shoot it in my veins. Okay, we're working on it. We're going to work on it here tonight. Did you happen to hear the Tucker interview? Okay. And now we got the other half coming out tonight, right? Ben will be here. We love Ben. Love Ben. And we'll get his thoughts on it. But may I tell you guys something? I think we have an opportunity to make this happen. I mean, they're fighting. They don't like each other very much right now. I think we can make it happen. I think we can. Thank you, Leanne. Go ahead.
Hi, Megan. My name's Cecilia. I'm
Hi.
a little nervous, but I'm from New York, and the town I'm from is very liberal, so being in school, there are a lot of outspoken people and friends on the left, and I tend not to just not say anything out of respect for their opinions and because I'm afraid to say my own. Ever since Charlie was killed, I want to be more vocal when someone I'm friends with says something that I don't agree with, but I'm unsure because I don't want to upset them. Do you think, as a high school girl, I should be more outspoken about my feelings on politics, and what can I do to get better at it?
Oh, that's a good question. So I would boil it down to the Supreme Court and free speech. You know, free speech, as you know, is protected by the First Amendment, and the High Court and most normal courts are very, very loath to regulate it because they understand the government cannot regulate free speech. But any government can regulate time, place, and manner of speech. It's okay for them to say, you can protest, but you have to be this far away from the event, and you can only do it between these 2 hours, that kind of thing. And I think the same rules should apply to you with your friends. Time, place, and manner. So if your friend's getting all up on, an issue and like berating you with stuff you know is not true, and it's bringing up that feeling in you of like, no, I have to say something, you should say something. But I don't think there's any need to just keep constantly injecting politics into your friendships, because especially for women, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this is how most women relate with politics first. Ben and I have actually had many talks about this, about how like you go to your average dinner party and a lot of guys will talk about sports, they'll talk about news, politics, and the women talk about their lives and their boyfriends or their husbands and their kids or themselves and their goals. And so if it doesn't come naturally, don't force it in there just to convert a friend. Because I do think it's important to keep people who are liberal in your life and friendly, and so you're reminded of our shared humanity, And if the price of that is not talking politics, no problem. But it's important to have friends across the aisle so you're remembered. We love them. We don't love their politics, but we love them as our fellow Americans. And anyway, having said that, like in the school setting, with a professor or a class that's ganging up, say it loud and proud, girl. Fight the good fight.
Hi, Megyn. First of all, you are absolutely amazing. Can we just all give it up for Megyn Kelly?
Thank you.
Unbelievable.
Thank you.
So, my question is, we have better ideas, better people. I hate to say better politicians, but I guess we do. And yet, we can't get people to turn out to vote unless Donald Trump's on the ballot.
I know.
Everyone, Donald Trump's no longer on the ballot. What can we do to stop the Marxists, to stop these absolute lunatic evil monsters? I love you to pieces.
Thank you. You're not wrong. I mean, let's face it, we need more inspirational figures, don't we? We need, not everybody can be Donald Trump. I mean, literally, there is another Donald Trump coming up the ranks. And he has a son named Donald Trump. There are 3 of them. But we're going to have to find more inspirational politicians. And how are we going to get them? Oh, hell no. Oh, no. My life is so happy. Why would I ruin it with that? I genuinely think you have to be more fucked up a person than I am to want to be. I'm a happy person, I'm well-adjusted. That's not the kind of person that runs for office. I mean, even Trump, he's a very strange man. He's awesome, but he's very odd. It's hard to find somebody who wants that power. So it's hard to find, but I do think on Team Red, we've got a lot of great people on the bench. They're just all in the administration, and we need to find them at the local level. You need men and women with swagger and courage and a driving honesty and willingness to use it. And right now, JD is totally 48, is he not? I think he's a clear 48. I'd be thrilled with Marco too. But I think JD, there's just no way. You can't have the Secretary of State and all the other 10 roles Marco has bypass the sitting vice president. So in any event, I think we need to encourage local elections, and we have to find better people. That's part of the battle. These candidates are uninspiring. With all due respect to Winsome Sears, she was not a good candidate at all. And nobody was shocked he lost, right? Chitterelli was good, but New Jersey's crazy. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, Ms. Kelly. My name is Genesis. I'm a student from Florida State University.
Hi, nice.
Thank you so much for coming and just being such a great role model for young women like me wanting to make an impact in the political world. My question is, in light of Mamdani being elected, in which
Yes,
I know,
boo.
in which I feel is in a large part due to young college-educated people, how do you combat the kind of thinking that socialism is a good thing?
Well, that's one of the few silver linings of him winning, which is they're going to see it in real time. I do think much of this battle has to be fought on the university campuses. They really have become indoctrination factories. I used to think when my kids were little, it'd be so great if they went to one of these top elite colleges. I was always very impressed by that. I went to Syracuse, which is fine, but it's not one of those, yeah, right on, go Orange. And my husband, who went to Duke undergrad and Georgetown MBA, he's like, Meg, yeah, but he was like, Meg, you put too much emphasis on that. In your mind, this is this great thing because you didn't exactly go to one of those, but he's like, you are so wrong. Half the people get in based on connections or whatever. And now I see it so differently. Now I feel like if my kids don't wind up at an SEC school, I'm not sure I'm going to pay for it. So I do think we have to start at the colleges. That's short answer. Hi there.
Hi, Megyn. First of all, congratulations on your trip to space.
Thank
You're
you.
an incredible astronaut.
Thank you.
And it was
Have you been?
not a ride, right? And thank you so much. Please bring out season 2 of that your parody.
With love, Megyn.
About the Duchess of Camelot.
Yes. That's right.
My question is, you are not just an independent media person. You're now a giant media mogul. Watch out, Barry Rice. But the problem is, in the independent space, there's some people who can be dangerous, who have millions of subscribers, who say things that people listen to, that are picked up by other people. I'm talking about Candace Owens.
Okay.
And first, when she started with Brigitte Macron, okay, I don't care if she's a man or a woman. The journalistic story is she was really a pedophile and a high school teacher who got together with her student.
That part we know is true.
Okay. My question is, then when Charlie died, she's gotten nuts. So how can you and other people that we respect and admire stop this?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. I have no desire to stop it. I don't. I think it's fine, and I actually think it's healthy to have Candace Owens out there saying exactly what she believes and pursuing truth as she understands it and having an honest relationship with her audience. Now, I understand that many people disagree with what she's saying and don't think what she's saying is factually true. I understand that. I take no position on that because I can't watch Candace's show every day. I've got a 2-hour show to do of my own. But whether it is or it isn't is really of no consequence to me. This is America. She's entitled to her point of view. She's entitled to say it, and she does it very articulately and brilliantly. And I think she's a very interesting broadcaster. Honestly, like for me, I don't really care if everything is perfectly correct. And she's been right about a lot, and I understand the controversy, trust me. But I think it's great to have these voices. And look at you. She's out there saying her thing, and you have your strong opinions that she's wrong, and you can stand up here and say, like, she's so wrong, I think she's dangerous. Okay, that's fine. You should not click on her face then. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, like, I listen, we're going to talk about Nick Fuentes tonight with Ben. I'm not a Nick Fuentes fan. Of course, obviously not. But even Ben doesn't want to see him canceled or, like, eradicated from the conversation. I'm not talking about violence. I'm just talking about, like, make it so that you can't hear him. This is America. We've always had nutcases out there. We've always had racists out there. We're fine. Like, the answer to speech you do not like is not less speech, it's more speech. So thank you for that. Hi.
Hey, Megyn. My name is Kanani, and I am a proud Marine Corps daughter,
Awesome.
wife, and mother.
Thank you.
And it's the Marine Corps birthday's Monday. Just had to put that shout out there. I want to say that my family's praying for you and your family's protection. And my question is, don't laugh at me. Why do you think the trans athletes aren't comfortable or it's not acceptable for them to have their own little place? They can call it suspicious packages, Battle of the Bulge, whatever you want to go with it. I'm saying, do your thing. Just do it over there away from my daughters.
Yes, it's a great question. Battle of the Bulge, suspicious packages. Do you think they'd use a restroom with suspicious packages on the front? No, of course. The reason is, and we all know, first of all, it's not women pretending to be men who are the problem. It's the men pretending to be women who are the problem. And that's because the overwhelmingly vast majority of them are, sorry, but perverts. They're not people who are genuinely gender confused. They're autogynephiles who get off dressing like women, and the whole point is to be seen by other women while they're doing it, while they're pretending to be us. And so we're part of their sexual fetish. That's why they can fuck off. I'm sorry, but it's like, that is why we have to fight this battle. Now, having said that, there are people who are genuinely gender confused. I actually know some of these people, and for those people, I have nothing but empathy. But they should be given an independent space to use. They should be accommodated with some sort of a facility they can go to. And I understand, especially if you are genuinely a gender confused man, you're worried about, like, going to the men's room when you look like a woman. I see that, and that's why I think in the same way we have like family bathrooms where you can change your baby at the airport, why can't we have just a gender-neutral bathroom, just a single stall where they can go? And the sports thing, that's more complicated. They can have their open category, but they hard no cannot come into women's sports. No.
Hi, Megan. I'm Chris. And back to your SEC school point, I actually go to the University of Texas, and I would say that's not a school you should encourage your children to go to.
No, it's not. Okay.
No. So it's actually one of the more places where people are like, oh, it's on both sides, guys. No, it isn't. And the analogy I like to use for that is people say you can't be racist to white people, you can't be politically violent to the left. That's just obvious. It only happens to right wings. Yeah, we don't. What would be your advice to people that are just praising this? And I mean, we even saw Virginia, the AG just get elected that praised the death of Republican children and puppies. Who wants to kill puppies?
Yeah.
People are upset when puppies die in movies more than humans, so that's just insane. So what would be your advice? Because I think it starts at Gen Z. We need this generation to be less violent, but at my university, people are praising Charlie Kirk's death. They're so happy James Jones was elected, Zohan Ramdani, all these violent people. So how do we fix that?
I don't think they're convertible. That's not something we can reason somebody out of. Like, I'd really like to live. Could you please let me and my family live and my fellow conservatives live? Like, that's not going to work. They can only be defeated. And that goes back to the question of how are we going to get better politicians? How are we going to get Republicans elected without Trump? That's something the Republican Party really needs to do some soul searching on. They're not that great at candidate selection. But the only answer is, I hate to quote Barack Obama, but don't boo, vote, vote. That's all we can do. They must be defeated. And my one sliver of hope on Gen Z is, yes, Gen Z is a mess. But the back end of Gen Z, which I have 2 of my kids are in it, is very conservative. The back end of Gen Z coming up, especially the young men, but the young women too, they have seen the lunacy. These guys have been subjected every year of their lives to Black History Month and Gay Pride Month and Women's History Month and Indigenous People Month and No More Christopher Columbus Day and, let's talk about our lady parts and let's talk about your implicit bias. And they're all like, none of them is taking this seriously, so I have hope in them. Thank you for the question, and good to know about UT. All right, we'll do 2 more and then we'll wrap it up.
Hi, Megan. My name's Leah, and I'm 15. My friend Kendall and I are actually starting a TPUSA chapter at our high school.
Yes.
Shout out to Kendall.
Good for you.
My question for you is, I want to go into the career of political commentary like you, and I was wondering what path you took to get where you are now, and what advice you could give me to start my career now, and how I can make a difference.
Thank you for that. Well, my way into news was somewhat circuitous because I started as a lawyer, which I did for almost 10 years, and then I got into news. And I will say I highly recommend doing something else before you go to news. I'm always a little suspicious of the people who go right into news and never do anything but news because it just seems a little vain and weird. Like, it's good to go out there and earn a living, like actually working and doing something hard before you make this turn. I think it'll make you a better journalist if you do too. As far as like building up your career and building up these skills, you just got to do it. The only way to be a good broadcast journalist or somebody who's on camera or using a microphone is to do it over and over and over and over and over again. And you can't get any better unless you do that, right? Just repetitive talking. And so just put yourself out there. And the great thing about it is it's a skill that you can use no matter what you wind up doing. So if you are a good public speaker, you're comfortable being in front of people, you can use that skill in anything. Even if you're not actively working outside the home, you could bust that out at a wedding. You could bust that out at a party. But like, if you project a sense of confidence when you're speaking to others, and you get it by repetition, as I said, it'll take you anywhere. So start with that. Say yes to public speaking or speaking in front of a group. Could be 4, could be 5, could be 5,000, as much as you possibly can. That's the promised way home. All right, we'll do 1 more, and then we'll get this thing started. Sorry to those of you standing in line, and thank you for standing in line and being here. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Megan, for taking my question. And I'm a follower. I'm here with my friend Kelly that told me about your show last July. And so I've been a big fan since. So thank you. I also follow Two Way, which I found on your network. And so this is based on one of their conversations. Okay. It's a question about healthcare. They've mentioned a bunch of times, mostly Sean, about the Republicans not having a way forward with health care. They keep saying repeal Obamacare, but they don't have a good thing to replace it with. So it's a 2-part question. Do you agree with that? statement? And can you have someone on your show that would talk kind of through what we can do for healthcare going forward, especially with the affordability thing going on?
Yeah,
so what
that's
can
a
we
good
do
question.
for healthcare?
Yes, I can. Thank you for the suggestion. And they're not wrong. The Republicans, they do not have a plan. And we're dealing with this government shutdown right now because the pain of Obamacare and all the new provisions that Obama put in place is about to come due. All these years later. He was elected in 2008. Right? So it's been how many years? I can't do the math that quickly. But they postponed all the pain, much of it, from Obamacare till now by these subsidies that would falsely prop up people who are using Obamacare into being able to pay these premiums. And now they're about to go away. And the truth of Obamacare, which is that it's ridiculously expensive, is about to become known. And they're scrambling on Team Blue to prevent you from feeling that and seeing that and knowing they're the ones that did it to you. Unfortunately, the Republicans are in the position of having to either watch the American people suffer and say they did it, or do something to help, right? To help solve a Democrat-created problem. And honestly, my own view is they should scrap the whole nightmare and just start anew. No one wanted this thing to begin with. It jacked up so many people's prices and costs of healthcare. It did divide us from our doctors and our plans, which became crappier and covered less. And so while now you can get pre-existing conditions covered, it created a whole host of other problems with which we have not dealt. And look, you could take the money we're sending to Ukraine, you could take the money that we devote to other, European and other countries to try to save them, and devote some of that to American healthcare. But I think there is going to have to be some help for the people who are not going to be able to handle their health care once these subsidies are removed, because you didn't put yourself in this position. The Democrats did this to you, and you don't deserve to just twist on the vine. Thank you. All right, let's go. If you've ever Googled yourself, you know how many results contain your personal information. And it's not by chance. Your info is available. Your name, your address, phone number, financial info, income, legal and health history. It can be sold and shared publicly without your consent. There are real risks here, including financial scams, identity theft, unfair targeting by insurance companies, and general safety risks. But I want to tell you about Incogni. Incogni helps you take control of your online privacy. You sign up, allow them to act on your behalf, and they demand that these data brokers delete your personal info. Now they've introduced something huge, custom data removals. With their unlimited plan, Incogni's privacy team gets your info taken down from any specific site. Right now, you can get 60% off, 60 off, an annual plan by heading to incogni.com/Megyn. That's INCOGNI.com/Megyn, and using code Megyn at checkout. That's what gets you your discount. It's risk-free with their 30-day money-back guarantee. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Get 60% off an annual plan at incogni.com/Megyn. Code Megyn at checkout. So you guys know our guests tonight are Andrew Klavan, Michael Knowles, and Ben Shapiro. And we're going to kick it off in no particular order, though, with Andrew Klavan, who I know you all know and who needs no introduction, but let's give him one anyway. Take a look at this.
Trigger warning, I'm Andrew Klavan, and this is The Andrew Klavan Show. My fight has been to get people to see that they're being lied to every day.
Feminism raised some really interesting issues, really important issues, but now it's just leftism in a skirt. There is a really 0% excuse to talk to a third grader about his sexuality if you are not his parent. They talk about him looking for retribution, but really, it's only justice.
The holy crap debate.
We finally beat Medicare.
Holy crap.
You can have all kinds of different opinions. You're smart people. We're not going to agree on everything. Luckily, I'm so old that before you can screw everything up, I'm going to be having lunch with Jesus, all right?
The fire. Do you love the fire? It makes me think of Charlie. He loved it so much. Great to have you.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh my God, we never see each other in person. This is a thrill. It's the nature of our industry now. It's all over satellite.
Everybody's on TV.
So it's been so fun for me to actually see people. All right, so I have so much I want to go over with you. We've talked many times about your religious background.
Yeah.
And I have questions because I've been searching on my own faith for a while now, but especially since Charlie died.
Yeah.
Have you felt more faithful since Charlie died? Yeah. Right? I think a lot of us are like having a renewed faith and a renewed search for what it is. I mean, I've always been a Catholic, but yes. Oh, Charlie Kirk does matter and still matters. So you're somebody who, you have an interesting background. You were born Jewish, you were raised in a secular Jewish family, and then you converted to Christianity at 54?
49.
49, okay, 49 years old. And you speak about your faith so beautifully. I've learned a lot about the Christian faith from you, actually. And you are like Charlie in that you can look through any political lens and infuse your faith into what we're seeing. So, first of all, just tell us about how that transition, that conversion happened to you.
Well, it's a 35-year story, so I'll have to condense it quite a lot. But it really had to do with fiction in a way. When I was 19, I read the book Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky, which is about a murder. And it was just at that moment when the moral relativists were coming up into the colleges and teaching you that one culture is just as good as another. Who knows what's right or wrong? You think one thing is right, I think another thing is right. And I read that book, and there's a brutal murder in it of two women, one of them a retarded woman, and it's just so pitiful. I thought, no, some things are wrong. Some things are wrong, and they'd be wrong even on a planet where everybody said they were right. And that kept me from falling into the pit of moral relativism, but it stuck me with the idea that if there is a right and wrong, there must be a supreme good, and that supreme good has to be a consciousness, because only consciousness is good. Well, you're applauding, but it's hard to work in my business if you believe these things. And
Andrew's a very successful author, writer, and screenwriter.
Yeah, and so slowly that worked in my head, and I couldn't quite accept it, and I had a terrible, when I was in my 20s, I had a terrible breakdown, suicidal, depressed, I just absolutely at the end of my rope. And I couldn't reach out to God then because I was so stubborn. I thought, well, then it's just a crutch. Then I'm just in pain. But through what I truly believe was a miracle, I found a shrink who actually healed me, which may be the only time this has ever happened in psychiatric history. And I became, really, within the course of 2 years, I went from being suicidally depressed to being a very happy, kind of jolly person, doing really well in my career, doing what I always loved doing, which was writing novels. And then I thought, well, now I've got no excuse. And I started to pray. And prayer transformed my life. And this is what I always tell people, People always say to me, like, how do I connect with God? I thought, call him. His lines are open, It's like, talk to him. And I started out with a 3-word prayer, which was, thank you, Lord, because I had come from such a horrible place in my life to such a beautiful place. And then it got to be like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, sometimes half an hour, sometimes an hour of prayer every day. And at the end of 5 years, I was now a screenwriter and a novelist, and I was driving my BMW convertible in the hills of Santa Barbara, complete jerk. And
sounds kind of awesome.
and I said to God, you've given me everything. You just transformed everything, and you're God, and I'm just a schmo. What can I do for you? And it came back to me instantaneously, you should be baptized. And I'm driving my car, and out loud I went, you gotta be kidding me.
Were you attending Catholic Mass? What were you going to at the time?
I was Episcopalian,
okay.
Which is no longer a religion, but at the time it was.
He's not, definitely not.
Now I'm an Anglo-Catholic, but then I was an Episcopalian. And it took me 5 months. I started to argue with God about this, and I thought, I can't really believe in these miracles and this stuff. And I went back, and I had read the Bible all my life because as a novelist, I knew it was the center of all art, and all Western art is based on the novel in one way or another. And when I went back and read it for the first time as if it might be true, I thought, oh, that makes sense. And listen, I'm not a literalist. I don't think every word is exactly what it means. Some of it's poetry, some of it's legends, some of it's all kinds of, but it's all the Word of God. And when I read it that way, it all made sense to me. And I knew that it was going to ruin my Hollywood career, which it ultimately did. And I knew it was going to, I thought it was going to start a terrible fight with my father, who had once told me if I ever thought of converting, he would disown me. And we had sort of made a separate peace. And I thought, well, I'm going to have to tell him because I give interviews and he'll see it. And he came to visit me. I was living in California. He and my mother were living in New York, and they came to visit me. And he walked in the door and he said, I'm seeing double. I have to go home. And this was a joke in my family. My father could never take a vacation without having an emergency that caused him to go home. So I laughed it off, but he was, in fact, has his final illness. And so I couldn't tell him at that point. It would have just broken his heart. So I spent a long time going back to New York, training with this priest, this Episcopal priest I knew, and then visiting my father, who was fading away. And he died in a week that was both Easter and Passover, which was very meaningful and sad. And then I came back for his memorial and left the memorial and went to the church and was baptized.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was like
But how did you go to Jesus? Like, because you kept reading after that Old Testament, and
Well,
that's a big shift when you read the second part and say, that's for me as a Jew.
Well, the thing was, I knew a lot about both Testaments because I was writing novels, and it informed the way I thought. And I knew that Jesus was the major character in all of Western civilization. And the idea that we can't know God until we see him, and all we can know of God is what we see, is what really turned the key for me, that this was the God that I could talk to face to face. And when I read the New Testament, it occurred to me that even if nothing like that had ever happened, everything that was in it was true. And that's just not the way things work. When everything you read is true, it's true. I mean, it's not an illusion. I don't believe that people are living in hallucinations unless they're literally insane. So I thought, no, this is what I believe. And it was just amazing. I mean, I had been baptized 3 weeks, and my wife, who knows me back and forth, down to the ground, turned to me and she said, you're a totally different person. The serenity is just, it's insane.
Wow.
And the joy,
And then you got into political commentary, and that serenity went out the window. It's not where you come for serenity.
What was I thinking? That ended my Hollywood career like that.
So how have you been taking in the increasing rise of Muslim politicians, and many of whom are connected to radical Islamists who are saying openly that this is part of a plan to take control in American cities?
Yeah, I'm not appalled. I wrote a novel when I was 25 in which I referred to my generation as holiday Jews. And the reason for that was that the Holocaust was not that long ago, and people knew what it was and remembered it. And so everybody was nice to the Jews, just like people were nice to gays after AIDS. They understood, oh yeah, this is bad, and these are human beings, and we ought to love them a little bit. And the holiday is over. And I see this in a lot of places. Your friend Tucker Carlson, I think, is expressing it. I think that Candace Owens is expressing it. I think that Islam, it's not individual Muslim people, because there are many lovely individual Muslim people, but as a religion, once they take over a majority, it grows up there. And what I know as a Jew who is a Christian is that these are brother religions. St. Paul said that all of Israel will be saved, and we are temporarily separated from one another. The Jews who don't believe in Christ and Christians were temporarily separated, but we will come together. And so that hatred, to me, is spiritual. You said that I always talk about God because I think that God is the central reality of life. And and I think everything is about God. It really is. And if you think about it, if there's a God, and spoiler alert, there is, then for about 200 years of secular life, all of our thinkers, all of our most famous thinkers, all of our most famous authors, all of our most famous painters have been living in a delusion about the most important thing in the world. And I think that, the Jews are the vehicle by which God re-entered the world after the fall. I think they are the vehicle by which he created a Messiah for all people. And I think that when you hate them, you are slapping God in the face. You're basically spitting in his eye, which is a bad idea.
So you're not feeling great about globalize the intifada, Mamdani.
Yeah, globalize the intifada. It sounds like it might make a good song, but as a philosophy, I'm against it.
Like, it's shocking to me that New York City did what it did. It's shocking to me that they would elevate a man like that with the connections he has to this post. And, you know, he's not alone. You know, there was that Omar Fateh that almost won as mayor of Minneapolis. And, you know, Dearborn is now run by a Muslim mayor and is almost majority Muslim. Minneapolis, too. Like, I'm, with all due respect to people who are Muslim, I don't think this is a good thing. I don't think this is consistent with Western values. And you see these videos online all the time of them saying, like, we have 6 kids and the white people are having 1, and this is part of the plan.
Yep.
And they're not right. They're not wrong. Like, I mean, read any leftist paper talking about how liberals don't want to have children anymore, the environment. Maybe now they'll listen to Bill Gates, who's finally reversed himself on his environmental catastrophism. And they'll start to actually reproduce and have children.
I think it goes beyond that, though. I think that there is one of the things that shocked me when I came to the Daily Wire. I was working with a lot of guys who were much younger than me. And one of the things I was shocked by was the hostility toward women. Guys, you know, and guys and girls always talk about each other rolling their eyes a little bit. You know, I've been an athlete.
At the Daily Wire?
No, everywhere. What
are you saying?
No, we all do this, you know, women, men, you know, with all that stuff. And, you know, I've been an athlete most of my life, and I've been in a lot of locker rooms, and you hear the way people talk about women. But in my generation, it was always with incredible love. Oh, women, you know, they're kind of nuts, but we love them, you know. All that was gone.
I mean, is he wrong? If we're being honest.
But all that was gone with the young people. They were showing me pictures of Andrew Tate saying, you know, you can dominate and destroy women. I thought, this guy's a pimp. You know, that's a bad thing. You know, pimps are bad.
It's a reaction, right? It's a reaction.
It's a reaction, right. And I truly believe, because I do believe everything is centered in God, that there is something about women's bodies, women's power to create life that is deeply connected to the holy and deeply connected to the spiritual. Even God, when he wanted to become a human, had to have a mother, you know? I mean, the first thing he did, picked out a mom, you know, and so when you are alienated from God, I think you're ultimately going to become alienated from femininity, from motherhood, from all the things that make life work. The only Western country where the population is growing, Israel, the only one. And that's because there's still this kind of tradition going on there, even among the non-believers, where you increase and multiply, you know. And I think that
we better get to it.
We better get to it. Yeah.
I played that clip. I don't know if you saw it, of Jennifer Lawrence refusing really to sort of reevaluating her foray into politics, and I really see that as a bit of a watershed moment, right? I mean, like, where Hollywood is going, you might be able to go back. I mean, do you think they've learned their lesson?
I have been getting calls. I'm less worried about people's opinions, because, like, as you were saying, I believe everybody should be allowed to express his opinion. I don't believe anybody should be canceled or silenced. But I'm much more worried about the system that's in place that keeps any traditional values of making it onto the screen. You cannot do it. And it's an entire social system. When I worked in Hollywood, we had a secret organization called Friends of Abe.
That's right.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys in that.
Yeah, it was Gary Sinise,
It's like an underground organization for conservatives.
Right. And it was like, you went to these meetings, and it was like an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. You'd come in and say, hi, my name is Andrew, I'm a conservative. And just, hi, Andrew, you know, it's like that. And it was terrible. And then you would go into a meeting where you were trying to sell a script, and the first words, that was George W. Bush days mostly, and Obama days, the first words out of the guy's mouth would be, sit down, isn't George W. Bush an idiot? And because I'm me, I would always say, I don't think so. And it's like, don't let the door hit you on the way out. And that is basically speaking up about the war, the movies that were being made that showed our military as bad guys while our military were being shot at in Afghanistan and Iraq. I started to write and say, you know, this is wrong. No matter what you think about the war, it's wrong to make these movies because they're propaganda for the enemy. And my phone turned off. Like, I thought somebody had unplugged it. You know?
Wow. No, they're a nasty industry. But it's reminding me of what one of our questioners asked, you know, a young girl talking about how do I bring up politics when my friend is bringing up her politics. And I do think there's an opportunity. I think in today's day and age, almost 2026 America, it would be so extraordinary if a young screenwriter went into that pitch meeting and was asked a question like that and then responded by saying, well, I'm a conservative, so I see things differently.
I did it all the time.
But I kind of think they've been brought to heel a bit. They understand their Wokapalooza movie extravaganza was a nightmare. It failed. They lost money, which is their true god in Hollywood. And that I think they're conservative curious now.
There's two places.
Because they want our dollars.
There's two places where this is true. Apple TV, of all places, they have a sort of white man's lane, where suddenly they'll put like George Clooney in a movie, and you go like, oh, okay, I'll watch it, and it'll be like an action film or
Meanwhile,
something.
he's not our representative.
No,
Pick someone else.
No, but the movie will be pretty good, And the other is Christian.
Vince Vaughn.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn, he's great. But the other is Christian filmmaking, which I hated for a long time because I hate these happy, smiley Christian movies. I mean, it's a movie. Our God.
Who doesn't hate happy and smiley?
Well, our God got killed. It's a tragic religion, and I used to think these movies were terrible, but then I realized something, that they bring in audience. People like them, and when you bring in audience, that attracts talent. And now you have things like The Chosen, which is really creative.
Yeah, that's excellent.
And Sound of Freedom, which was a very, yeah. And I mean, the New York Times, Sound of Freedom is about the child, selling children into sex slavery. It had the New York Times going, well, these conservatives hate sex slavery. What's wrong?
Thanks.
But that's because the audience attracts the talent. And when the novel started out in the 18th century, it was supposed to be for women, go away women and read your novels. And then Jane Austen came along and took the form and turned it into an art because that's where the audience was. And her talent brings in Charles Dickens and all the other guys who come in and made the great age of the novel. And so building an audience is a good thing.
Yeah.
And I think the Christians have done that. And I think that if conservatives will just get past their hurdles that are in front of them and start making stuff themselves and start making it on the internet and start using AI to make it and start peddling it any way they can figure out, I think we can beat them. Listen, we beat them in the media, right? I mean,
yeah.
we destroyed them, and it was us. It was guys, little people.
That's exactly right.
Like the revolution, shooting at them from behind rocks.
It doesn't even have to be. You don't necessarily even have to make the film, although if you can, great. But you can go patronize films like Top Gun Maverick, which are not woke, which are pro-America, which have somebody who, I think we can safely assume Tom Cruise is a Democrat, a leftist Democrat who's very, very pro-COVID lockdowns and mandates. But who cares? His movie was great and was right down the middle. He was not propagandizing us. We can support those films and send a message to Hollywood. You do that? We're open-minded. Our side always is open-minded. We have to be. Otherwise, we could take in no TV, no movies, no news, no sports. We couldn't work in corporate America. That's the beauty of being us. Okay.
Yeah, great guy.
Yes, Kevin Sorbo.
Great guy.
There's a bunch of them. I mean, honestly, they're coming out more and more now because they feel emboldened. All right, I have to leave it there for now. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you
Andrew
very
Klavan,
much.
everybody.
Thanks a lot.
He's wonderful, isn't he? Aw. Andrew's so successful. He's had, sort of like me, he had another huge career before he became the pundit who you see on the Daily Wire all the time and really made it in Hollywood with like award-winning films starring the biggest actors in Hollywood. And, then he decided to do this thing. And among his other extraordinary accomplishments, he raised Spencer Klavan, who is probably the most brilliant person I've ever met in real life. And it's like a beautiful story. We'll talk about it sometime. But he and his son have a lovely relationship that is #goals when it comes to raising one's child. You know what's right around the corner? That time of year to start thinking about gifts, not just holiday gifts, but hostess gifts. Aren't you sick of giving a bottle of wine? It just blends right in. Nobody knows. They know you didn't put any thought into it. Think about giving this, something everyone will love. Firecracker Farm hot salt. Firecracker Farm. That's right, hot salt. You've heard the buzz because this incredible small batch product is genuinely special. It has the perfect amount of heat and flavor and elevates everything you put on it. Eggs, steak, chicken, pasta, whatever. Plus, it comes in these beautiful little sleek stainless steel push grinders. The presentation alone tells you someone cares about what they are doing. Listen, Alex and his family make this in small batches, so when it's gone, it's gone. This happened last year. With Christmas right around the corner, they will sell out. This is not some generic last-minute gift. Okay, we're talking November, 3rd today? So do it now and get it in time. It's thoughtful, high quality, and genuinely special. Get a few, and then you're covered on all the hostess gifts and like last-minute gifts you forgot to give. Like I said, it's small batch. They have limited quantities, so you need to make your move now. Do yourself a favor. Get your gift shopping done today. Head on over to firecracker.farm. Firecracker.farm, I say, and use the code MK at checkout for 10% off your order. Okay, my next guest does give him a run for the money when it comes to intellect. Michael Knowles doesn't give a shit if you don't like him. He says all the most incendiary things. It's hard to make my jaw drop, and Michael Knowles does it regularly. And he does it by just being totally, unapologetically, fearlessly honest, but with such intellect behind the points that it really is like chewing rubies in your mouth when you repeat his words and hear him speak. Here's a little quick intro.
Outrage boiling over at the University of Buffalo. Hundreds of students and community members gathered in protest.
Do you have anything else to say?
Hello, I'm Michael Knowles. I'm a conservative podcast host. I am surrounded by 20 LGBTQ plus activists.
I'm gay married.
Who?
Right? Like,
you're not really married.
I'm sorry. I'm going to outright call you a fascist.
Oh, no.
Permanently banned by TikTok. Every time you come on this show, Michael, you're in trouble. What'd you do? What did you do?
I'm always in trouble.
Plenty of those white conservative men that you like so much seem quite happy. Just take a look at this clip.
Joy Reid, she has just been canned. Kicked to the side of the road. Her show is over.
Okay, well, we've got Michael there. Michael, anything you want to say to Joy?
Joy, very nice to meet you. Now there's no longer a market for that absolutely vile content, and I think that's good for the culture broadly. And now we can all chat on Pierce's show.
We build, they destroy. That has been true since the terms left and right entered into politics during the French Revolution. If they want to tear it down and knock it down, let them try their very best. Pay them no heed. We're going to keep moving forward.
Megyn, did you say talking to me is like chewing rubies?
Yes.
I want that in my Twitter bio. That's really good. I like that.
You take all the thoughts I have in my head and make them sound so much more eloquent and informed. It's one of the many things I love about you. One of the first bonding moments Michael and I had, and you guys will understand why this was personal, is you were on Fox News. You said something totally reasonable about Greta Thunberg, and then Fox canceled you, and you were never allowed to come back on.
That did happen. I was on Fox, and I was asked about Greta Thunberg, Saint Greta of the Blessed Sailboat, who was... You're familiar with her. Okay, for those who don't know, she is a truant who thought that the sun monster was going to kill us all, and so she sailed a boat back and forth with, like, private jets flying overhead and whatever. So, anyway, I said... The girl was 16, 17 or something, and I said I thought it was wrong that the left would exploit a girl who was mentally ill, because her mother wrote a whole book about how she had these mental illnesses, and I said that's wrong to do, and you shouldn't exploit kids for politics. And then they canceled me for that.
Yeah. Fox News decided
outrageous.
Michael Knowles was too controversial because of that comment. I remember DMing you saying, what utter bullshit.
I appreciated that.
So wrong, and a beautiful friendship was born from that point forward. So,
By the way, that's the only good thing that's come out of Greta Thunberg's activism, is our friendship.
That's
Yes,
it.
yeah.
Thank you, Greta. She's way off of that cause now. Now you know she's globalized the intifada type.
Yeah, there's no more money in the sun monster, so she's got to put on the keffiyeh. That's
They
more
switch
valuable.
it like that, like that. It's amazing, right? So you were born and raised in New York City.
I was raised in the suburbs. I'm a suburban man. Though I guess when I was really little, I was in the city, and I lived in the city later on. And after what occurred on Tuesday, I don't think I'm ever going to live in the city again.
Yeah, I know. I lived in Manhattan for 17 years. I can't say I'm totally shocked by what they did, because they did elect Bill de Blasio twice, who is truly an idiot. I don't think Zoran Mamdani is an idiot, but Bill de Blasio is dumb as a donkey.
Megyn, I fear that Bill de Blasio is like Winston Churchill and Ronald Reagan combined compared to Zohran Mamdani.
Oh, God. I think this guy's clever, and I'm a little fearful of how clever he is. What do you make of his ascent?
A lot of people asked me when Zohran was running, they said, Michael, isn't this terrible that a Muslim is going to be the mayor of New York City? And I said, we should be so lucky if he were actually a Muslim. Look, I understand Christendom's had a little conflict with Islam for about 1,400 years now, so it's a tough situation. However, at least if he were actually Muslim, I could speak to the guy. He would believe in God. He would believe in a moral order. He would believe in an ordered society. We could have a conversation. It wouldn't be good, but we have a conversation. I fear it's worse than that. I fear when you look at the Muslim communist Zohran Mamdani, he leans a little more on the communist side. I think he is a cringe millennial leftist who is every one of your worst classmates at university. He's like that guy, and he is going to destroy New York City.
Yep, I know. It's happening, and that's what they voted for, and we're all going to have to sit by and actually watch it. What does it say, though, about where the Democratic Party is? I mean, do you think he is the future? When they asked Hakeem Jeffries that, he said no, but Zohran Mamdani won by huge margins, and if you don't think there are other Democrats in other cities right now saying that's the way to win elections, you're wrong.
Who else would the future be? It's not Mrs. Pelosi. After a very brief 64-year political career, Nancy Pelosi is retiring, it seems.
Did you hear that news? Yeah. She's not going to run for re-election. She's 85.
I don't want to violate any SEC rules or anything, but if you are invested in the Nancy Pelosi tracking stocks, sure, get out right now. They're going to drop.
Just like she does.
Yeah, that's right. Is she the future? Is Schumer the future? No. Kamala Harris, the former future president, was asked about this. Who's the future of the party? Do you have any leaders? Because for the first time in at least 25 years, there is no leading candidate for president. The Democrats in 2000, 2004, the leading candidate with 25% of the vote at this time in the cycle was Al Gore. After that, it was Hillary Clinton. After that, it was Joe Biden. There was always someone who had this role. There's no one right now. And Kamala was asked about this, and she said, oh, and she kind of giggled, and coconuts fell out of the sky, and then she said, of course we have a future. I mean, we have Zohran Mamdani, she named him. We have Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett, can you imagine? We have AOC, whoever. And so, you got it from the horse's mouth, or some part of the horse. They're saying that this is the future of the Democrats, and I believe her.
By the way, Zohran Mamdani cannot be president. He was born in Uganda, and he's Ugandan.
It never stopped Barack Obama. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Don't clip that. Don't clip that.
You'll get canceled again. Who's smarter, Karine Jean-Pierre or Kamala Harris?
I will have you know, and I have this on good authority, Karine Jean-Pierre is a black queer woman.
No.
Yes.
No.
I heard that on TV.
How do you know?
I heard it many times from Karine Jean-Pierre. So it's a tricky battle. I mean, maybe she's like a fox, that Karine Jean-Pierre. She held that job the whole time, and there was no actual president the whole time. So Karine Jean-Pierre effectively might have been the president for like 3 years.
Do you view Kamala Harris as an intellect?
St. Thomas Aquinas shows us that all human beings are made up of, matter and intellect. We have will and intellect, and part of that is memory, and part of that. So inasmuch as she is a human being, I suppose I grudgingly have to admit that she might have some intellect, but that's the first thing that's made me doubt Thomas Aquinas ever in my entire life. So I don't know.
Same. You had an interesting opinion recently on Sydney Sweeney. Now, we talked on the show about the dress she wore.
Well, yeah.
Did you like the dress? Split of opinion, maybe. So I came out against it. I love her. I think she's great. She's very brave. But I didn't like the dress because I thought you went too far. And it was Allie Beth Stuckey on the show that day who said, can we draw the line at areola? We're all for titillation. We love the return of actual women, to these events and as the headliners and so on. But like, headliner good, headlights not good. There should be some modesty. But you had an interesting take on why the dress actually was kind of conservative in a way.
It's a Straussian reading. It's an esoteric. I'm not recommending. I would never send my daughter out in the Sydney Sweeney dress. I do not recommend it generally. However, I have to point out, what was the event that she wore it to? The event was called the Power of Women Gala. And what do we know about Sydney Sweeney? We know that she's a registered Republican, reportedly. Love that. We know that just today some liberal journalist was trying to bait her into all these stupid answers about her jeans ad, and she just completely shut it down. She's got better message discipline than the entire Republican Party put together. We know that in a culture of androgynous they-thems with crazy hair and 15 septum piercings, that Sydney Sweeney looks normal, like a really, really, really pretty normal person. And so I thought there was this esoteric message, very anti-feminist, which she said, you want to invite me to the Power of Women Gala? I am going to show you a big part of the power of women. And so I'm not saying it's conservative. I'm just saying it's not feminist. It ain't feminist for sure.
Yes, I actually love that point. I take your point because I remember, not to compare myself to Sydney Sweeney, sadly, I wish I could, but no. But it was 2016, and we were headed to the Republican National Convention, and I was anchoring for Fox, and it was a crazy time. It was like Trump and, just so tumultuous, and it was crazy for me at Fox because that day we had gone out to the Republican National Convention in Ohio, and that day it broke on the air that Roger Ailes was credibly accused by all these women, and that I had been cooperating with these investigators, and it was just like my whole life was on the news, and then I had to go do the news. And I went out to do the coverage that night, and of course all these leftists are like, she's a girl boss, that kind of thing. And I remember thinking, I'm not one of you. Like, I didn't want any of this out there. I was dragged into this kicking and screaming. Like, I don't want this to be that. And that night I wore this, it's like spaghetti strap outfit to do the news. And it was kind of that moment, you know what I mean? Where I was like, I'm gonna sauce it up and remind you all that I'm not on your team. I'm gonna bring the heat as a woman who's not looking to be out here in pinstripes, like grabbing people by the balls and castrating them, right? You can do it all. You can be a news anchor, you can take yourself seriously, but you can also be sort of a saucy person who men find attractive and who you want to find you attractive, right? Because you're a regular American woman. So I kind of relate to what you're saying.
Yes, look, I'm all for modesty, truly. I didn't even see the dress at first. My producer said to me, he said, Michael, why aren't you leading the show and closing the show with Sydney Sweeney? The ratings would be through the roof. I said, what? I saw some headline, I didn't pay attention. And then later on, it popped up in my Twitter feed, and I said, all right, got to get custody of my eyes. Hold on, let's see. Go to
custody of my eyes.
Hold on, I got to go to some other news website or something. But I thought, in a culture that is so confused as ours, in a culture that doesn't know the difference between men and women, it is a relatively conservative thing for a woman to really be a woman and really
it's true.
Show everyone.
We're going to talk about that soundbite that you mentioned of Sydney Sweeney a little later, but we talked with Andrew a bit about his faith and his conversion from Judaism to Christianity. And of course I know you're deeply religious, that you're a Catholic, you're a devout Catholic. And I did not know until I was actually preparing for tonight that you doubled down on your faith. You found your true conservative Christian faith, or devotion to Catholicism, until you were at Yale? That's not a thing. Who goes to Yale and becomes more of a devout Catholic?
I think they're going to rescind my diploma when they find out that was the consequence of it. Yeah, I always prefer the term, instead of devout Catholic, I always prefer the term practicing Catholic, because I'm going to keep on practicing until I get it right. Might take a long time. But when I was cradle Catholic raised, the 90s were kind of a weak time for catechesis generally. And then by the time I was 13, I was about to be confirmed, I said I'm an atheist, because I was a very clever little boy. And Christopher Hitchens had that posh accent, and he was just so smart. And I thought I was smarter than everybody, so I said I'm an atheist. And my mother looks at me, she says, She said, you're going through a phase. You should receive the sacrament of confirmation. You're going to come out of it. You'll regret it if you don't. I said, okay, all right, whatever. I trusted my mother. She was right. I was an atheist practically an atheist for 10 years. That started to weaken when I was 18. I get to Yale, as you mentioned, and most people are atheists, and I don't know, a ton of people are much smarter than me, many of whom are atheists. However, I noticed the most intelligent people were not atheists. They were theists, they were in varying degrees of practicing religion, and they presented me with intellectual arguments for the existence of God. They're pretty good. The ontological argument, later on St. Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways. Then I found other British guys who were clever and posh to counter Christopher Hitchens, namely C.S. Lewis, Owen Barfield from there, G.K. Chesterton. Only at a Megyn Kelly event, you get applause for Chesterton and Lewis. It's great. I love that.
Thank you.
Love that. And so by the time I was 23, I graduate. That was when I really reverted. I'm not a convert, but I'm a revert to the faith. And it's one of those things, as what St. Augustine said, you know, how late have I loved you, you know, a love ever ancient, ever new. And it's kind of how you feel. You say, man, I really took the long route. You know, I talk to people who are cradle Catholic, you know, broadly religious, and I said, that was the easy way. That's what you should have done. And I took the long route, but hey, all's well that ends well, so I'll take it.
What was the conversation between you and God after Charlie?
You know, I was at work, and the morning that Charlie died, I thought about texting him, because Charlie was very good at texting, and I am very bad at texting. I don't text anyone back. It's bad. I mean,
Same.
Yeah, I'm horrible at it.
Shame.
My friends, my family, very important people. And anyway, I thought, shoot, I owe Charlie a text. And it was a text, actually, weirdly, a little bit about religion. And then he was shot. And also, oddly enough, Charlie and I were supposed to do an event together at the University of Minneapolis 12 days after he was killed. And the last conversation we had on his show, he said, all right, Michael, I'll see you in Mogadishu. And it was a great observation. And so my first reaction, everyone was chattering about it on Twitter. I said, just pray for Charlie Kirk, you know. And but what I can know, I don't want to tell tales out of school, but I think a lot of this has become public. You know, one, everyone knows Charlie was deeply religious. Charlie was wearing a St. Michael medal, actually, when he was killed. I opened the speech that we were supposed to have together with the prayer to St. Michael. And you don't believe it. I was talking to my wife who saw it. Happily, I didn't see the video, but she did. And she said, you know, it's a strange thing, because I looked at it and I said, there's no way he's alive. And then at the same moment, I said, there's no way he can be dead. He's Charlie Kirk. You know, the guy would have been president. And everyone knows it. And it's a very difficult thing, because it's all in God's providence, you know, and Charlie knows that better than anyone. And, you know, Charlie had certain faith in Christ. However, there's this impulse afterward to say, well, we're Christians, we shouldn't be sad. Charlie's with his Savior, we shouldn't be sad, you know, we should be happy. This is a very modern aspect of Christianity, to say, you know, don't grieve, don't mourn, just be happy clappy. And that ain't my kind of religion. I don't know. Maybe I'm a little too traditional, but it is deeply sad. And we should grieve, and we should mourn, and it's a great injustice, and we should be indignant. I mentioned Thomas Aquinas earlier. He says it is a defect not to be angry in the face of grave injustice, and we should be absolutely furious about it. We should also have trust in God. We should also have hope as a theological virtue. We should also pray for Charlie and his entire family, but we should be really shocked and mourn. And it was a national trauma as much as it was a personal one. I know a lot of people were grieving. I thought, man, am I grieving because we were friends? And that was part of it. I would meet grown men on the street, and they would be crying, and they never met Charlie ever. It was a national trauma. It was a political trauma compounded by a second political trauma, which is when the Democrats celebrated it.
Yes.
And we should be furious, and we should reassert some order to conduce to the common good.
Yes.
As a national wake-up call.
Amen. Michael Knowles, thank you.
Thank you, Megyn.
Everything.
Thank you to all of you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Chewing the rubies. Well, you may have heard of my next guest. Let me tell, I'm just going to steal a couple minutes to talk about Ben Shapiro. So I first got to know Ben when I think he was 10. He looked 10. And I was on the air at Fox, and he started coming on. And he was obviously so smart, right? But he was so young. And you were kind of like, are people going to take him seriously? Like, he's so young. It's like, but all you needed to do was spend 2 minutes with Ben Shapiro to realize, oh, people are going to take him seriously. Yeah, we're good. We don't have to worry about that. I quickly fell in love with this guy and his political commentary and started putting him on more and more and more and more and more. And in the ratings game, which is cable news, you can see how somebody does. Like, do they rate? And you can see it minute by minute. Does the audience go up when he's on? Does it go down when he's on? Does it hold steady? And we'll take either go up or hold steady, but if it goes down a lot, then you never see them again. And every time Ben was on, you could see it skyrocket because people were learning something. He's got the gift of gab. I mean, he's completely articulate and can make his points without any stuttering, without any ums and ahs, without any hesitation. But he's always substantive, right? And you always learn something. Agree, disagree, doesn't matter. You learn something from Ben Shapiro because he's always done his homework, right? You never think, oh God, that guy's going to come out with empty-handed. He's got that big brain. He's got the legendary IQ. It can be very intimidating, talking to him at first. But I'm proud to tell you I'm now one of the very few Americans who listens to the Ben Shapiro Show on 2.0. It's not easy to do. You can listen to the Megyn Kelly Show on 2.0, but the Ben Shapiro Show, Megyn Kelly, fine. Ben Shapiro, no. You have to be an expert. So we became friends over those years. And then, of course, I left Fox. I went to NBC, and everybody knows what happened there. So there I was, sitting on my couch, feeling sorry for myself, licking my wounds, thinking my career's destroyed. Literally, everybody's calling me a racist. Nobody wants to hire me. I'm a joke in the industry. I've gone from like the top of my game to someone everybody is laughing at and treating with scorn. And who reached out to me? Who actually reached out, sent me a text, and said, we need to talk? Ben Shapiro. He saw I was down. He saw I was hurting. And instead of what most of us do, honestly, what I do too often, and just kind of say, like, oh, that's sad, move on, he actually reached out and said, I want to help you, and you need to get off that couch. He didn't have to do it. Ben, his life was great. His show was completely crushing it. The Daily Wire was on fire. Like, he was a busy man. Did not have to take 2 minutes to think about me. And it wasn't like I had done him any extraordinary favors at Fox. He was a star. He was brilliant. Anybody could have seen that. I wasn't some special, spotter of talent. So he said, MK, you need to come out here to the Daily Wire in California, where they were at the time. Now they're in Nashville, and see what we're doing and see whether you think you could see yourself doing something like this. And he wasn't like, you must work for the Daily Wire. I want to make money off of you. I think you're a commodity. I could buy into the Daily Wire. He was like, you need to do this, and the country needs you to do this. So I did. I flew out there, which was a big step for me because I was really just stress eating at home most days. And showed me all around. And not only did he show me all around the Daily Wire and show me exactly how he was doing a show and how one could do a show, but like completely, he was like, here are our financials. What do you want to know about us? Like, here's exactly how here's what this costs. Here's what the advertising is. Here's how you could do it. This is how much it would cost you. Like, it was amazingly transparent on somebody who, like, he didn't have to do any of this. It was like the amount of trust that he put into me, having me out there and showing me. I was like blown away by it. And I left the Daily Wire that day and Ben saying, this is what I want to do. He inspired me fully and completely. And I didn't totally know exactly what my next move was or how I'd get into it or who I'd hire or from where I would do it or any of that. But that was, I think, December of 19, and I had made the decision that that would be my next move. And then we got into the fall or the spring of 2020 and COVID hit. Spent that in Montana with my family, and then George Floyd-a-Palooza hit, and by September of 2020, the Megyn Kelly Show was born. Sometimes we joke with Glenn Greenwald, who's one of the most frequent guests on the Megyn Kelly Show, that he's the godfather of the Megyn Kelly Show because he comes on so often. That's true, but I think you could make a fair case that Ben Shapiro is the father of the Megyn Kelly Show. And I will be forever grateful to him. Did you know that up until the 1990s, all chips and fries were cooked in beef tallow? Those memories of you at McDonald's in the 80s, that was beef tallow, not seed oils. But then big food companies made the switch to cheap, highly processed seed oils. And now they make up 20% of the average American's daily calories. This is why I'm excited to tell you about Masa. It's a chip that's doing things differently. You have 4 Masa chips, you feel sated. You don't have to eat the whole bag. Masa chips are made with just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's it. No seed oils, no junk. And let me tell you, they are so good. They're crunchier, they're tastier, and they do not break into your guac. Plus, they leave you feeling light, satisfied, and energized. It's truly, truly true. No crash, no bloat. Go try them. You're going to taste the difference and you're going to love them. Ready to give Masa a try? Go to masachips.com/MK, masachips.com. And use code MK for 25% off your first order. That's masachips.com/MK, code MK when you check out to get 25% off your first order. Don't feel like ordering online? Well, Masa's now available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. You know he's a total juggernaut. His show it's in a league of one. He's reinvented this entire industry and lane. He started the Daily Wire, which gave us geniuses like Klavan, Knowles, Matt Walsh, who we love, who we just talked to 2 days ago, and many, many others. And I have nothing but unending love and respect for Ben Shapiro. Take a look at this, and we'll bring him out.
Ben Shapiro, go to hell! What's happening to today's college kids? What explains the fear? Ben Shapiro went out and made a speech. Some students who didn't even go to the speech have made appointments with a therapist to deal with the trauma.
That was the crowd that greeted conservative writer Ben Shapiro as he was attempting to give a speech.
And I was told by the police officers, if you do that, there could actually be a riot. Look at me. I mean, like, do I look like a physical threat to anybody? It's not rude to say that someone who's biologically a male is a male. Facts don't care about your feelings.
You cut that out now, or you'll go home in an ambulance.
Yeah, that seems mildly inappropriate for a political discussion.
No, I know.
If you're going to criticize the meritocracy as an outgrowth of white supremacy, then you're going to have to tear down the system that you've succeeded in because you have merit. Joe Biden, there's only one thing the guy is good for, and that is being wheeled out in front of a parade that's already moving. He's like, oh, look at that. Oh, I'm here. Yeah. And Ben Shapiro. Really enjoy your work, Ben Shapiro. You used to love Ron DeSantis. I think you're going to love us a lot more. I think you're going to really enjoy being with us. Like, okay, Mr. President, appreciate that. Fox News just called it. It's over, gang. This election is done. It's toast. You can put it in the fridge. It's finished. The greatest political comeback in American history. Un-effing believable. I mean, this is a huge victory against the woke left that needed to take it directly in the teeth. Well, folks, I just got back from the theaters seeing Barbie. This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
And you said, I may have a desire to sleep with many women, but I do not.
I agree with me. Yes, that's true.
Congratulations on your,
Charlie's voice is not silent. We're gonna pick up that blood-stained microphone where Charlie left it. And to those who would intimidate, who would seek to stop us, who would seek to end free discussion and kill people who speak freely, we are not going to stop. And I have 2 words. You.
The man, the myth, the legend, the one and only. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Megyn.
How about that walk down memory lane?
That was great.
Right?
Yeah.
I am so happy you're here. This worked out so well. You've been in the news lately.
Yes.
Yeah, you seen that?
Yeah, a little bit.
How's your last year been?
The last year has been interesting. Obviously, huge victory for President Trump, which was the big news of the last year. All the transformative policies that he's put into place, that's been wonderful. I've had the opportunity to see him do some of these historic things in person. I happened to be in Israel for the Jewish holidays when he was giving that historic speech at the Israeli parliament, which was unbelievable. I mean, it was truly tremendous. And then obviously you figure after an election things are going to cool down, and then things don't cool down. And so it's been busy. Obviously since Charlie's murder, which I think all of us reacted in precisely the same way. The security threats went up dramatically. I've had obviously personal security since I believe 2017, maybe 2016. I've had about 10 years of personal security. The last 6 years has been 24/7 security on me as well as on my 4 children. And that's been accelerated even more so in the aftermath of Charlie's murder. So that's on a personal level, that's been not fun. The good news is that the security guys are very sweet, and my kids get along with them great, and they have lightsaber fights with them, and they think that this is kind of normal, but it isn't normal, and I wish that the country would go back to normal, but it seems like it may be a while.
You've been dealing with this for a long time, and I've seen it personally. You know, I mean, I've seen you surrounded by teams of security, and I heard you say, and I mentioned this last night, that if, God forbid, something happened to most of the Daily Wire guys, we would know exactly who did it immediately. If something happened to you, God forbid, it would be like an Agatha Christie mystery. There's so many possibilities because you're loathed by the far left, and you're loathed by what we used to and maybe still do call the alt-right. And I remember we used to talk about this on the Kelly File because some people called you alt-right. And you would explain, no, I'm not alt-right. I'm loathed by alt-right. So what is alt-right and why do they loathe you?
So there is a group of people in the United States who are rooted in an idea of grievance against the system that they believe has put them underfoot. And those people believe that essentially they are underfoot because of their white status. And thus, they must take revenge on anybody who is disproportionately benefiting from the system that tends to, in their own minds, be Jews. And you see this mostly refracted right now through a young man named Nick Fuentes. He's 27 years old. He is the leader of a movement called the Groypers. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this, but he says and believes truly awful things. I mean, truly awful things. Not just about Jews. I mean, he has said, for example, that the Vice President of the United States, this is a direct quote, I believe, is a fat gay race traitor married to a Jeet. That's a direct quote about the Vice President.
And upset that he named his son Vivek.
Yes. He also has suggested and spent years trying to destroy Charlie Kirk's organization. Charlie, in texts that have now been revealed, called him vermin for exactly this reason and had banned him and his followers from TPUSA because he believed that Nick Fuentes and the Groypers and white supremacy didn't belong as part of the conservative movement. And so the alt-right became this, or they're two sides of the same coin, or they're parts of the same sort of broad movement. And unfortunately, I think that they've gained a foothold in sort of the internet subsystem. I don't think they have a foothold in mainstream America at all. And I think one of the mistakes that people make is to think that the internet is real life. The internet is absolutely not real life. And the first thing people need to do is turn off X, which is poisoning brains and making people think that not true things. It's basically like war games. They think the missiles are real. The missiles are not real. The things happening on X are not a reflection of real life, but they can bleed over to real life if enough people take them seriously.
So you and I have talked about Nick Fuentes many times over the years in our many appearances together, and that's how I knew about him, because he was saying absolutely terrible things about you. And I am going to show a video, please forgive me, of one of my first introductions to this guy, Nick Fuentes, and what he was saying about Ben. This is a video of him showing himself playing Grand Theft Auto, right, a video game where you shoot people, and he's pretending that this character in the video is Ben. Let's watch.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, that's funny. Man, that makes me laugh and laugh. That's a funny one. What a chance encounter that was. I think I just saw Ben Shapiro.
And it goes on. It goes on.
I mean, I would hate for people to believe that the Nick Fuentes sort of, my problems with Nick Fuentes are about me, because they really are not. They are about the fact that Nick Fuentes is a truly horrifying person who believes truly horrifying things. And again, there is a reason why Charlie Kirk despised him. There is a reason why every mainstream political commentator has been highly critical of him. It's the reason why these are not arguments. This is not a person who's making arguments. He is a Hitler-loving troll, and I say that advisedly. He literally says on his show that he loves Adolf Hitler. Okay, so the reason this has come up in recent weeks is because Tucker, your guest last night, decided to have him on last week and to completely gloss him, in my opinion. And you can make up your own opinion as to what you think Tucker was doing during that interview, but I know what it looks like when Tucker Carlson decides to be an aggressive interviewer, when he decides to ask difficult questions of people. Tucker is eminently capable of doing that. He did it to Ted Cruz quite thoroughly. But he decided for any number of reasons, and I try not to attribute motivations to people, that he was going to treat Fuentes with kid gloves, that he was going to not ask him about any of the things that I've just mentioned, literally any of them, and to essentially normalize Fuentes, act as a sort of gateway drug or as what I've called Tucker, as an ideological launderer of bad ideas over the last couple of years. And this is not coming from a place of animus for Tucker on a personal level. I've known Tucker for a very long time. Tucker and I, whenever we're in personal situations, we get along great. I think I saw that Tucker talked about how we were at Charlie's memorial in the vice president's box together, and he's correct. I mean, we saw each other, we said hello, we talked, it was very friendly, and all of that. And it's also true that a couple of days after Charlie's murder, he reached out and he called me and he said, listen, I know that we're at odds, and we've been at odds for a number of reasons, mainly political. I mean, again, on a personal level, I'd go fishing with Tucker anytime. The real question is, for me, I got into this business because I care about the ideas and I care about the ideals. And so when you're determining what is conservatism, what should the future of America look like, and where do you draw the lines, those are the questions that I need to answer in my job. For me, my business is really not about friendship. I have lots of friends, people who I love, with whom I disagree on politics and don't believe they should be leaders in the conservative movement, for example. And that, to me, is the real question. In any case, Tucker reached out. He said, we've had a bunch of disagreements, and what if we could put those aside and align toward the DSA in particular, is what he mentioned. And I said, Tucker, you're totally right. Let's do that. That would be great. In fact,
the TSA?
The DSA, the Democratic Socialists of
Why
America.
the TSA? How did that bring you together?
The Democratic Socialists of America. And the reason
No,
I'm
that
taking,
I know.
Yes, and the reason that I'm taking out
TSA
my
only
phone
divides people.
is because, yes, the reason I'm taking out my phone is because I don't just, I like to evidence what I'm saying with, actual evidence. So I texted him, and the text exchange was very nice. I mean, here's what the actual text exchange went like after the call. So I texted him, and I said, thanks so much for calling. It means the world. It truly does. Should we do a show together talking about the DSA threat, Democratic Socialists of America threat, and orienting in the same direction? Happy to do whatever it takes to bring everyone back together for the fight that matters. And Tucker then wrote back, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I'm going to spend the next week or two thinking about how to be most effective. The country is clearly on the brink. I reached out repeatedly. After that, nothing happened. And again, I thought it was a good idea at the time. I think I felt differently after I saw what he did with Nick Fuentes, and after he proceeded, in my opinion, to spend the subsequent weeks doing literally nothing to fight the left. I say this with sadness because Tucker used to be, I think, a deeply important part of the conservative push to win. The number of times that Tucker Carlson has mentioned Zoran Mamdani since October 5th on his show is once. And it was in the context of Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson talking about the appeal of Zoran Mamdani. Just by way of contrast, not because I'm a perfect representative here, but because you talk about Zoran Mamdani a lot. A lot of us have. Since October 5th, I did 17 separate shows on Zoran Mamdani, including 4 in the last week before the election. Okay, because when you're orienting against the left, you really should orient against the left.
Okay, so a lot in there. I think, just to be clear, so the breakdown from the detente after Charlie was him interviewing Fuentes? Was that the next thing that happened that led to the blow up?
I mean, yes. I mean, okay. I had not spoken a word. There
so it
were
wasn't
things
that he attacked you, or you had something?
No, I don't care about
it
people
was that
attacking
interview.
me, and I don't think Tucker cares about people attacking him. I mean, again, we're professionals. We're in a business where people comment on what we say publicly. Again, this is why I think you and I differ on our angle with regard to, for example, Candace Owens. I think that what Candace Owens is doing right now is evil. It is evil what she is doing right now. Okay, and I say that again.
But what?
Because
I didn't opine on whether it's evil or not, but my position is it's really none of my business. And
why is it? But I have a question. Why is it none of your business? I mean, you comment on these things for a living.
I'm not mother of the internet.
No, but if this were on the left and somebody were accusing Charlie Kirk of his wife having murdered him, I assume that you would be talking about it.
Is that what Candace is accusing Erica of?
Yes.
Of murdering her own husband?
She's accusing TPUSA insiders and other members of the right wing, including Seth Dillon, of being involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk, yes.
Okay. like I said, I don't take in that content, which is an honest statement. I don't have time to watch Canada's show.
I believe you. I believe you. But the point that I'm making is that when
what I
that
understand
friendship
Canada's
should not, in our
doing.
business, I think it's important. Listen,
Candace
friendship
and I are
should not
friends.
trump.
We don't even know each other.
I understand, but even with Tucker, friendship should not trump our manifest requirement to speak out when people do and say things that are both detrimental to conservatism and morally wrong.
Okay, so I don't totally disagree, but I think the way of handling that, at least for me, is much different. So I saw things go south between you and Tucker, at least from my vantage point, when you disagreed on Israel. That was obvious. And
Well-
he was, well, let me just make my point.
Sure.
And so he was saying things that were critical of Israel and our policy towards Israel. And then you did one show where you did what I thought you should have done if you disagreed with him, which clearly you did, which is say what you believe and what you think is factual and like educate your audience on what you think are the real facts and give them the evidence for it. But you named him and it felt like an attack. And that to me was the beginning of the end, where he was like, now it's on. Because he felt personally attacked by you, as opposed to just challenging his idea. I think you named him and you kind of diminished him. And you know, he's an 800-pound gorilla, and if you mess with a gorilla, he's gonna fight. And to me, that's where it started to go south. And because I remember that day being like, oh shit, I don't want to see this.
But here's the thing. I would urge everybody to go back and listen to the show that you're referring to, where I criticized Tucker's ideas, not Tucker as a person. Tucker then responded by claiming that I do not love America. That is a direct quote. That I do not love America because I was spending too much time covering the October 7th attacks, and then proceeded in January to then say that I wanted his children to die in a foreign war. Okay, so those are a different.
That's a rhetorical.
No, it is
point.
not. I'm sorry, it's not. An attack on motivation is a very different thing from an attack on an idea.
His point was that you were sounding like a neocon, and he's upset with anybody who wants us to get too involved in Israel's conflict because he feels it endangers American children.
Okay, the idea that, number one, the idea that I want the United States to be directly involved in Israel's conflict is not true.
No, I know that, Ben.
I've been urging Israel to get off of American aid for literally as long as I have been active in politics.
But I'm making clear what his point was.
But my point is that that's not his point. And again, none of this.
So we disagree.
We disagree on the interpretation of what Tucker has been doing for the past 2 years, and it's very difficult for me to believe that Tucker is merely anti-Israel when, for example, today in his newsletter, I mean, I can directly quote it if you'd like. In his newsletter today, he claimed that Zoran Mamdani is not anti-Semitic. This was his newsletter today, this morning. I mean, I'm happy to read the text. It's a little extraordinary because again, it is kind of shocking stuff. So here's what Tucker Carlson wrote in his newsletter today, or what his newsletter says under his name. He said, "Is the incoming mayor a fan of Israel? Does he want America to fight its wars? Not particularly. But a Jew hater? That's a different conversation. We've never seen anything to suggest he falls into that ugly camp. If we're talking about fighting the left, defending Zoran Mamdani, who literally said that he has no opinion whether Hamas should disarm, who posed alongside the 1993 World Trade Center unindicted co-conspirator, who would not disown globalize the Intifada, who suggested that whenever there is a New York Police Department boot on somebody's neck, it's an IDF lacing the strings, to suggest that that's not anti-Semitic in any way? No way.
Okay, but listen.
Or
I'm going to give you a defense of Tucker here, and I don't need to defend Tucker because I'm not Tucker.
Tucker can perfectly
but
well
I'll just
defend
say,
himself.
I think in general, because I know him and I listen to him and I understand generally where he's coming from. He would say his problems are with Israel, and he would say that shot that Mamdani laid against the IDF is a shot against the IDF. And Israel and how he thinks they're pro-war, not against Jews.
Okay.
And I think
all I can say is when Tucker Carlson finds himself in complete alignment with Zoran Mamdani, it is very difficult for me to believe that he does not agree with Zoran Mamdani.
I think Tucker is in a place right now of the same place that Charlie was getting to toward the end of his life, the same place that some people had tried to drive me, which is you're under withering, nonstop accusations of being something you know you're not. But from some people who you love and who you've been protecting, at least in my case and Charlie's case, for 2 years, who you've been completely defensive of.
Megyn,
and Charlie and I both felt, and because we talked about this on my show, like, what's happening here? Why are they dropping charges of anti-Semitism against us when we love Jews and we're both open Semites? We're Zionists.
So Megyn, you may notice, I'm just talking about me here. Are there people who are overzealous? Sure. Have I ever attacked you?
No, never.
Did I ever attack Charlie publicly about any of this?
No.
Okay, he and I had disagreements behind the scenes. Did I ever?
You get defensive, and I think Tucker's feeling defensive.
By the way, I waited to attack Tucker until he glossed Nick Fuentes, that has nothing to do with Israel. Nick Fuentes hates Jews.
I'm not
and
saying
Tucker
you didn't have a
massaged
right
him.
to go after him. I mean, I think you did what you thought was right, and you felt, and he mentioned you a few times in his interview with Nick Fuentes.
He did, but again, I don't think it's about that, because if he had not mentioned me in that interview with Nick Fuentes, I still would have said something about it, because again, glossing people who are white supremacists is bad electorally on a pragmatic level. A right wing that embraces its own fringes will end up in the same position as a left wing that has embraced its fringes.
Okay, so that's why I want to get into it. Embraces.
Yes.
So now, having spoken to Tucker, I actually see that interview very differently. And I did listen to the interview, and I knew what Nick Fuentes was. And I think he did show himself to be who he is. It wasn't his most vile stuff, but you got the feel for what this guy was. But I really think Tucker was talking to him, Ben, to put like a bumper on this guy. Because what Tucker was urging him the whole time was to understand that collective punishment for any one group of people is wrong. It's deeply immoral, and it's anti-Christian, which this guy is supposed to be, and reminding him of how deeply immoral that is, that you should not be looking at a group of people, whomever it is. The left does it to everyone, whites mostly, but like this collective shame, white men in particular. And there's a group of people like Nick Fuentes that does it to groups of Jews. And he was making the case throughout the whole interview in the way that Tucker does. He's not like you or me. He's not like pointed and cross-examining.
That is not true.
And was making...
That is fundamentally untrue.
No.
Ask Senator Ted Cruz whether that is true.
He gave it to Ted Cruz because Ted Cruz is a politician.
That's hold up. So only politicians get cross-examined?
You don't. Well, look,
Truly?
it depends on the person.
Tucker would never cross-examine a person who is not a politician. That's his rule.
Tucker has excoriated public figures who purport to speak for us and represent us for many years. Nick Fuentes is a podcaster civilian.
Okay, I just have a question. We all in our industry are constantly excoriating people who are in our industry. It happens all the time, every single day.
Okay.
Okay. Again,
but we're talking about his interviews.
We can agree to disagree on your interpretation of what Tucker was doing there. I think everybody should watch and determine for themselves what they think Tucker was doing in that interview. And I urge you to watch it back to back with the Ted Cruz interview to determine whether you think that was an aggressive Tucker Carlson interview, and you can judge for yourself.
I didn't say it was aggressive.
My opinion.
I didn't say it was aggressive, and I don't think he would say it was aggressive.
And
I think his point was, this guy, first of all, he's become a behemoth, sadly. He's got 5 million viewers on Rumble. He's got 1 million followers on X.
I agree.
This is all before Tucker Carlson. And he was platformed, I hate that verb, but he was platformed by Patrick Bet-David. And he went on Dave Smith's show, and he went on another big show. He's been getting more and more purchase in the political ecosphere, including right wing.
And I think that's
Patrick
bad.
Bet-David has a huge show. I know, but did you
Bet-David
know
did
that Patrick Bet-David had him on? Did his life blow up?
Patrick Bet-David did a significantly more aggressive interview with Nick Fuentes than Tucker did.
Okay, but my point is simply he's growing. He's growing in stature. And so what I saw Tucker do was not whitewash his ideas, but try to put bumpers up on the guy. I know Tucker well, and I think that was his approach. And the way, if you want to put a bumper up on Nick Fuentes, is it helpful to say, you're fucking vile, you're an anti-Semite?
Yes.
No, it isn't.
Yes, it is.
That doesn't put a...
Yes, it
No,
is.
it isn't. That makes
Yes,
the
it
audience
is.
feel good because you have hand-to-hand combat, but it doesn't help change that guy's view or his extremeness at all.
Okay, I'll tell you what doesn't change Nick Fuentes' view. Tucker Carlson with his arm around Nick Fuentes, grinning for the camera, while Nick Fuentes tweets out America first, and then triumphantly goes on the air the next day to explain that he has essentially used Tucker Carlson as a vehicle for manipulating other people. Okay, that's what Nick Fuentes is saying, not me, Nick Fuentes. Okay, and Nick Fuentes, and by the way, I will again say that Tucker Carlson, when you say to somebody in an interview, do you condemn anti-Semitism? And then the person says, sure, which is what Nick Fuentes said. He said, I'm not an anti-Semite, which is blatantly untrue. Yeah. A responsible journalist would then follow up, demonstrating that that is false. Tucker did not do that. He allowed him to get away with that, and then he allowed him to talk about, quote-unquote, organized Jewry, followed by Nick Fuentes being treated to a disquisition by Tucker Carlson about why Christian Zionists of all human beings on earth are the people that he hates the most.
He took that back.
You can't take that back. How do
can
you take
too.
that back?
He did.
How?
Because he went, he
then,
spoke
then he
to...
should, then he should explain why it was wrong. He should explain why Christian Zionists are actually wonderful people.
Tucker is very quick to self-flagellate, and he went on with Dave Smith the next day, the next week, whatever, Monday, Tuesday this week, and said, that was stupid. I didn't mean that. He said, I'm angry at people like Lindsey Graham. I'm angry at people like Ted Cruz because he thinks they run headfirst in these conflicts and they don't think about what's going to happen to American kids.
Hold up. If we're talking about firing inside the tent, whatever you think of Lindsey Graham, okay, and I'm not a huge Lindsey Graham fan, he votes with the President of the United States 100% of the time, and Tucker spent yesterday's show excoriating him as a psychosexual death worshiper. Does that sound like firing outside the tent? Again, these are the questions.
I'm not offended.
Again, the questions that I'm asking here, I'm not asking you to do anything, Megyn.
No, I know.
Okay,
I know.
I'm not.
Our beef is not with each other.
I'm not, okay? When I draw a line with regard to what I believe Tucker Carlson is doing to the conservative movement and what he is fomenting, that is because that is my info, and everyone can make their own decision as to whether they think that I am right or whether I am wrong and where they choose to draw the line with regard to the conservative movement. The question for me is always whether somebody's statements are forwarding moral values that I think are worthwhile. I did not get into this business for the money or for the clicks. You didn't either.
Neither did he.
What was that?
Neither did he.
I mean, he may not have. That's fine. I certainly did not. I'm only going to speak for myself. And what that means for me is that if I see somebody breach basic moral values by having on a Nazi, and in my own view, you can take your own view, in my own view, gloss the Nazi, then I'm going to speak out about that, and I'm going to point out that there is a long pattern of him ideologically laundering terrible ideas over the course of the last 2 years, ranging from traveling to Russia to sniff the bread and explain why the Russian regime is actually wonderful, to saying last week that the Venezuelan regime of Nicolas Maduro is actually not that bad because they're being attacked by, in his words, globo homo.
Tucker's made the point, I'm not going to here to be Tucker's defender, but he's made the point that Maduro is culturally conservative.
Who gives a shit? The guy's a communist dictator. Everyone in his country is eating dog. He's shipping fentanyl to the United States to kill Americans. Why do I give a shit whether he's anti-LGBTQ rights? This is the number one thing about Nicolas Maduro? You know how far down the list you have to get before you can get to anything remotely recommendable about Nicolas Maduro?
I did ask him yesterday about the criticism that he didn't give Nick Fuentes a hard time, right? He didn't bring up the stuff that we've been talking about. No, he didn't. And here's what he said. It seemed to think that we've way overstated the number of Jews killed in the Holocaust. He's ripped on poor Usha Vance in the most offensive terms, which I mean, so what do you say to those people who say, why didn't you raise any of that?
You know, do your own interview the way that you want to do it. You're not my editor. Buzz off. I mean, I don't know. You want to go yell at Nick Fuentes? I'll give you his cell. Call him and go sit and yell at him and feel virtuous or whatever. That's up to you.
I agree with him.
By the way,
I agree with him. I agree with him. He did the interview that he wanted to do for a reason.
Here's the other thing I want to say. We all have different approaches in this industry, you know, and there's been a lot that people in podcasting have said that I disagree with, including many of the names that we've discussed tonight.
And we disagree too. I mean, yes,
yeah,
of course.
But, I mean, yes, rarely, but sometimes we do. But my own personal approach, generally when it's someone who's on what I consider to be my side, the side of sanity.
And this is the entire question, is whether I consider Tucker Carlson to be on my side.
I got it. But I would just say, just for the record, my own general approach, and this is my audience here, so they know, is in general, I will take on a position and I will make clear how I feel. For example, I've been asked, and some of my audience is mad at me for this, but what do you think happened to Charlie Kirk? And I believe a man named Tyler Robinson shot and killed Charlie Kirk. I believe he was influenced by trans Tifa, radical trans activists, that he fell in with a lunatic that goes by Lance Twiggs, that guy was extremely radical, and that he and possibly a band of others convinced this guy that violence was the answer. And I believe others knew about it before Charlie was killed. That's what I believe. And until you can show me cold, hard proof that it was something other than that, that's what I'm going with. And I don't want to do or say anything that will jeopardize the FBI investigation and prosecution of that guy to make sure he spends the rest of his life either behind bars or on the wrong end of a firing squad. But so I feel like I can make these points without attacking people who generally are on my side in fighting the deranged leftists who are killing us.
But my point is, so 2 points. One, you have to define your side. You do. There are limits to the side.
All the people who don't want to kill others based on their political ideology.
So I would agree with that, except for the fact that, as you showed, Nick Fuentes wants to kill others based on their political ideology.
He's not on my side. He's not with me.
My point is that Tucker treated him as though he was on his side.
And I see it differently. I think he did an exploratory interview where there was a possible attempt to put a bumper up on this guy.
I think that we don't have to go over ground that we've already covered. We can agree to disagree on that, and everyone can make up their own mind after going and watching the interview yourself.
Why don't we do the Larry David? I disagree to disagree. By the way, is it gloss or glaze?
I've heard it both ways.
Yeah.
I mean, gloss, like a glossy,
you
like.
have kids who do the brain rot talk. That's what they call it, brain rot. Those terms. Like he's got Riz. I don't know. I've got 2 teenagers and a 12-year-old.
I mean, listen. My original verbiage is that Tucker was fluffing him, so I guess that was more G-rated.
That's a porn reference, right?
It is.
It's a porn reference. Yeah, he's not afraid to say it. So, let me ask you this: there's some risk to both of you in this. You know, it's like Godzilla and King Kong having this battle. There's some risk to both of you because you both have very large shows, very large audiences, and there's probably some overlap, or at least there would have been 2 years ago. So is this in any way, did you feel any reluctance to, have this?
Okay, so I was reluctant because, again, he and I had texted about the idea of orienting in the same direction, and then I decided that we were, in fact, not oriented in the same direction. Okay, but am I worried about, the career risks? No, because to me, there's sort of a Laffer curve when it comes to influence. So famously, when it comes to economics and the Laffer curve, the idea is that if you tax everybody at 0%, you receive 0 tax revenue. If you tax everybody at 100%, you also receive 0 tax revenue because everyone stops working. I think there's an influence curve as well, because I thought about this a lot before this.
This is so Ben. Who goes to the Laffer curve to bring home the point about this is so smart, but then he knows that we don't know what he's talking about, so he defines it.
So if you have no influence, but you speak out a lot, then you have no influence. If you have tons of influence and you don't speak out when it's appropriate, you also really have no influence. And so for me, the question becomes, when is it important to speak out? And Megyn, you and I have been talking behind the scenes about many of these same issues for a very long time. And so you know that you've known me for a very long time. I'm pretty good at conflict, but I don't like conflict. I really don't.
You've been trying to put this one behind you guys for a long time.
A very, very long time, consistently. For a very long time. In fact, for 2 years, I can read older text messages. After that initial blow-up where Tucker was suggesting I have dual loyalty and all of this, I literally texted him and I said, Tucker, we seem to have gotten crossways somehow. I would love for you to come on my show. I'd be happy to come on your show. We'll do it. And he proceeded to ghost me for 2 years. Okay, so
he was not in a headspace. I didn't talk to him about this, but my assumption is he was not in the right headspace to
for
have
2
a date
years
time.
is a long time to be not in the right headspace.
Well, but look at the 2 years we've had, right? Look at the 2 years. It's all related to Israel. It's all related to Israel.
I do not agree. I disagree. I fundamentally disagree.
He wasn't picking fights with you before the Israeli conflict.
It wasn't about picking fights over Israel. Okay, again. You're trying to turn it into he picked a fight with me or I picked a fight with him.
No,
For me, the question is the principles.
It blew up over the past 2 years.
I don't think that it's a coincidence that obviously anti-Semitism simultaneously blew up with the war of October 7th.
Yes,
that's
but also
true.
so has conflict and controversy involving feelings over Israel.
Of course. And now the war has been over for several weeks. And Tucker Carlson is writing newsletters about how Zoran Mamdani is not an anti-Semite. What does that have to do with Israel?
I think that's a hangover from being called an anti-Semite at every turn and feeling angry about it.
You know what? I'm a little tired of the excuse that if you are called something enough, that justifies all of the subsequent activity. I've been called every goddamn name in the book. Every name in the book, and I have not. But I have not shifted my positions because people call me names. That is a childish thing to do.
Ben, with all due respect,
and pardon the language,
you did not have an entire country call you a Nazi for the past week. I think he's in a defensive place right now on charges of anti-Semitism.
I'm not interested in his psychotherapy, Megyn.
I am. I love him as I love you.
Well, you know what? And that's why I started this off by saying you're empathetic and you're a wonderful person and you're a good friend, and I think that. There's a reason why in the medical industry you don't operate on your friends or your relatives.
But you're telling me I need to.
I'm not telling you. No,
that's what I'm trying not to do.
No, Megyn, actually, I haven't said that one time here.
Well,
I said that's why I'm doing it.
I know, but there are many people
and you're urging me
like,
not to. And I'm saying that is not a move that I can make because Tucker has already closed the door to the idea that we are on the same side.
But he hasn't closed the door to détente. Let me show you another soundbite. Let me just show you one more. But is there any way that you and Ben Shapiro can actually find your way to détente?
I'm not against Ben Shapiro. He did like a 40-minute thing yesterday calling me dangerous and all this stuff. It's like, I didn't watch it because why? But I got a lot of texts about it, and it's like, I don't think Ben Shapiro is driving a lot of this stuff. I don't consider him like the world's greatest force for evil. I don't feel that way at all. I don't actually think about him ever. So I don't want to have a war with Ben Shapiro. I don't know does he really think that me doing an interview in which I explained that anti-Semitism is wrong to one of the lead purveyors of anti-Semitism, that somehow makes me a Nazi? Like, what is the argument here?
I'm going to ask him tomorrow night.
No, but I don't even understand what the argument is. All I know is that the right, and I've been on the right since before Ben was born, is acting like the left in such an amazingly precise way that I'm like, what the hell is going on?
I agree with Tucker that the right is in fact acting like the left by, again, massaging its radicals in the name of some sort of faux unity.
That does not sound détente.
Because
can it
again,
happen?
I'm not, trying to turn this personal is a mistake.
I know, but can it happen? If you, like that person who sent
Megyn,
those texts from your end, is that person still willing to sit with him and work something out?
When Tucker changes his positions, then sure.
Yeah, so
if he does not change his positions, then no, because I'm not in politics to be friends with people. I have children, I have a wife, I have a dog, I have an extended family, and I have friends outside of this.
He doesn't want to be friends with you either, Ben. It's about uniting the right so that we can fight the right enemy on the left. And Tucker is of the right, and Tucker has been fighting for a lot of these ideas for a long time, and he's changed this country fundamentally for the better.
I'm not saying Tucker has never been a wonderful advocate for anything on the right, because I don't think that's true. I think in the past, he was a great advocate for many things on the right, particularly on the immigration issue, for sure. I'm saying that's not what he is doing now. I do not think he is advocating for right-wing positions. He is not conservative than I am by any stretch of the imagination on any possible issue. And when it comes to the question as to whether he is actually making the conservative movement more likely to lose by attacking inside the tent significantly more often than anyone else on the right, while simultaneously massaging, again, watch the interview, massaging the nation's leading white supremacist, I'm sorry, there's no détente with those positions. Forget about the person, there's no détente with those positions.
Fair enough, fair enough. Was this a good discussion? I mean, honestly, I give you tons of credit for coming and doing this. It's such a crazy thing for me that I had him booked last night and I had you booked tonight, and then you guys wound up in this. But part of me loves that, I can talk to both of you, but part of me hates this because I don't like it.
I hate it too. This idea that I'm like seeking conflict, again, I'm not.
I know.
It's idea driven.
I know.
If the ideas are bad, I am against them.
I get it.
If the ideas are good, I am for them. End of story.
I get it. And he would say the same, right? He feels very much America first, and that that we need to prioritize what's happening in our country, and Israel's not on that list, and so on. You guys can listen to that interview if you want to hear Tucker's full thoughts. It aired today. You probably heard it. Okay, we're gonna take 20 seconds, and surprise, we're bringing Andrew and Michael back out here. We'll have a group discussion starting now.
You guys again.
So what I missed?
You gave us all the easy questions. I like that.
We had a lot of fun. All right, let's actually have fun. Let's kick it off with the Sydney Sweeney moment. Not the dress, sorry. But with the moment, an extraordinary moment she had today where she was asked quite a question by GQ magazine about that infamous or famous, depending on your point of view, American Eagle jeans ad and how she handled it.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
Like a boss.
Yeah. That was actually sexier than the dress, I think.
What an extraordinary moment, right?
It's great.
That's watershed stuff up there.
It's the new meme. You know, there's a meme on the internet of like Anakin Skywalker talking to his wife, and then really he sort of doubles down, and it's this like dark right wing. That's the new version of that. She's the new spokesman for the American right, and I'm willing to go so far as to say right now I'm formally endorsing a ticket of Vance Sweeney 2028, the greatest message discipline in the Republican Party.
The message discipline, exactly. But what a thing to hold your own and say, like, no, I won't be making news for you today on that.
It's so great. And she understands the game, right? Which that the lady who's after clicks. And if she comments in any way, it'll make a huge headline. She's like, you know, no gas for the car. Yes. And now where are you going to go?
But
Smart.
that plus that Jennifer Lawrence moment, right?
Yep.
Drew, is like, they're starting to get it.
Oh, listen, Hollywood is out of work. When I say that, I mean they're all out of work. You could make a movie about white supremacy and they would show up because they are out of work. The business, this is true, the business has shut down. Only the Christian people are making movies, a couple of movie stars who can still make movies. The business has closed. And you know, the unions are enforcing racial quotas on the films, and you cannot win an Oscar if you don't have a certain racial quota of the people involved. And all of that is kind of just coming apart at the seams. It's kind of delightful. Yeah.
It is. It's wonderful. Well, this is not least because this is the Democrats' bench. Like, this is their A-team to get them elected, right? This is who they bring out. This is who they parade out now. And more they're going to be getting a no. Because if they can hurt the career of Taylor Swift, they can absolutely hurt anybody else. And by they, I mean us. So they're learning that we have real buying power and that we can hurt you if you get too political. And we will. Like, we don't use it that often because we're conservatives and we kind of let people live and let live. But like, when they try to push Kamala Harris into the White House, we stand up and we fight. We find our spine. So I feel so encouraged by that. I don't feel encouraged at all about anything that happened this week, but I feel encouraged by that.
And there was really no blowback to her either, which is sort of the impressive thing. So you remember back in the 90s, Michael Jordan famously was asked about why he didn't start making very loud political statements. And he said, because Republicans wear sneakers too. And everyone went nuts on him. This was considered terrible at the time. And then, of course, the NBA decided that LeBron James was the great face because he was so political, so much better than Michael Jordan because he was political. She said this, and I think all of us cheered, and the entire left kind of backed into a corner. They really did.
They're afraid. They're like, oh, shit.
I think that's right.
She can't be pulled around.
But you know, you said something earlier, Megyn, that people have to show up for the people who make rebel films and rebel books and all that stuff. There was a film on Apple TV with Tom Hanks where he was a guy fighting Nazi submarines. All he does through the entire movie is read the Bible and kill Nazis. And I thought, everybody should be watching. We should be subscribing to Apple TV.
It's called Greyhound, by the way, and it's terrific.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Terrific, yeah.
Let's talk about 2028 and Team Blue. Who do we like? Who do we think is actually going to pull this thing out? Gavin?
I guess I get like the leading candidate.
Like if you had to put your money on it.
If you forced me today, I would say no. It's going to be a Bill Clinton-like figure in '92. It's going to be someone who maybe we don't know yet because no one's over that 25% threshold. Probably it is American Psycho, Governor Bateman, Newsom over there. Probably he's the leading candidate. The problem for him though is he doesn't know who he is. So he's a very far left mayor. He was doing gay marriages in San Francisco in like 2003, long before that was legal. He is very, very left wing. Then he tries to pivot and be the new Clinton Democrat. So he tries to be friends with Charlie Kirk. He tries to be friends with Steve Bannon. He's going to cut this middle ground. That doesn't work. Then his press team is tweeting threats at Stephen Miller, and they're going far, far left shortly after Charlie was murdered. So he doesn't know where he stands. And it's just a party problem. The party problem is, the future of the Democrat Party, per Kamala Harris, is Jasmine Crockett and Zohran Mamdani, all these like far left communists. And he understands that no one is going to win a primary as a white guy who's a moderate who's friends with Steve Bannon, and no one's going to win a general if she's Jasmine Crockett, who sometimes can speak the English language and sometimes apparently can't.
But I saw you say on your show, this is why you believe Gavin Newsom is actually going to run, and he is going to run as the next black president. And the reason Michael predicts this is because of this soundbite. We got one more soundbite for you that comes from an interview he did with two former NBA players last week.
But also, it was also about paying the bills, man. And it was just like hustling. And so I was out there kind of raising myself, turning on the TV, started, just getting obsessed, sitting there with the Wonder Bread and 5 stacks of,
Hey, it's like the White Stack 5 story.
Come on. Macaroni and cheese. Grew up, bro. Every day in the backyard, just bouncing the basketball, throwing the ball against the wall until the ball is just like fraying, man, and your arms
Entertaining
fall.
yourself.
That's it, whole thing. So just, and then, you know, then this student that was shitty student is in the back with his head down, all of a sudden started throwing the baseball a little faster than everyone else and started, you know, make a few free throws because I was sitting there practicing 500 of them every damn night. And in high school, I look up in the stands, my dad's back up there.
Okay, dope.
And it's like, man, and then he's bringing his friends and you're captain of the team and you're like, gee, you know, and it just saved me and it got me into college.
He's got my vote, by God.
Michael said he was born a poor black child.
I was waiting for him, and you know, listen, I'll tell you, fellas, smoking blunts was a daily routine since 13. Chubby fella on the scene.
He is such an unbelievable lizard person. Right? Like when you watch him, you can almost see the ridges under his skin kind of moving.
Yes.
And you're waiting
The
for like
hands.
him to unzip and just a dinosaur pops out. I was actually
How
in
about the working class lie? It's such a lie.
It's unbelievable.
He said, you know, he goes, well, my pops went out to get milk, you know, he didn't come back, and finally my dad's came around. His dad was the financial advisor to the billionaire Getty family, and he was a judge. He was a judge. That was his other job. My dad worked 2 jobs. Yeah, you were a financial advisor and a judge.
He was featured in a magazine spread as a teenager with the caption, "Children of the Rich." I was like, Wonder Bread and mac and cheese.
You know, I'm going to go a little bit off the board in terms of 2028 picks for the Dems. I think everybody is underestimating AOC.
Yeah, me too.
I do.
Who? Underestimating?
AOC.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's scary.
Because if I look at the order of the Democratic primaries, it goes Iowa, super progressive, New Hampshire, super progressive, and you get to South Carolina, and that was sort of the firewall for quote-unquote normie Dems last time, right? Because Bernie won both the first 2 states, and then the entire Democratic Party decided to deprive him of the nomination by all getting together in James Clyburn saying it's got to be the dead guy, and so they all mobilized behind Biden. I think that it's harder to do that with AOC because what she represents is Bernie but ethnically diverse. And that is not a horrifying pitch inside the Democratic primary electorate, actually.
And hot. She's cute. You know?
Come on, Drew.
I'm sorry.
Stop
She
it.
is. She is.
Just stop it, Drew. Drew, no.
Yes.
No,
she-
Drew,
yes,
no.
she is.
Stop. She's no Sydney Sweeney, and I think we can all
She's
agree.
no
No, she's
Sydney
no
Sweeney,
Sydney Sweeney.
but she's got what Sydney Sweeney's got.
My own personal opinion is you can't be like that constantly angry all the time and like really penetrate the lens.
You really
It's
need that
beautiful.
look where
right,
the
Ben is right.
eyeballs are like half out of your
Yeah,
eye
but,
socket,
no, but Ben,
like all
Ben
the
is
time.
right. She's a good campaigner. She's good on the.
All right,
she
so would you put
absolutely-
money on AOC? Like, was she your front runner?
Yeah, I'm looking at the polls right now. I think that she is. If she's not, I think right now it's Newsom and her. But I think Newsom fades. I do. He's got the same feeling about him that actually I kind of felt about a guy who I really like, Governor DeSantis, in the early primary going in the Republican Party in 2024. I love Governor DeSantis, but in 2023. The idea was that he was definitely going to be the nominee in 2024, and then of course Donald Trump just swamped him, right, and swamped everybody. And so I could see a world where the Newsom moment kind of fades. Like he feels like he's peaking early. In all these races, there's somebody who kind of peaks early and like, oh man, remember that Tim Pawlenty guy? Remember there's like a hot moment where everyone's like, oh, Tim
poor
Pawlenty.
Tim
I like Tim
Pawlenty.
Pawlenty, but come on, you remember?
Okay, but what about like an outsider, like Stephen A?
Okay, first of all, I really like Stephen A. As a human,
I know.
Stephen A is great. As
We
a
all
human
like
being.
him.
But a Democrat. And so Stephen A,
He's
no.
moderate. He's diverse. He's from the outside. He's very good on camera.
That'd be fun. I would love it. Would love.
No? What do you mean? To run as a Democrat? We could do no better. On Team Blue, like to get a normie running as a Democrat, where like our worst case scenario is Stephen A. I feel like that's pretty good.
I totally agree with
No?
this. Totally agree with this.
Vance is going to be the next president, no matter what happens. It's
Vance.
Vance and Rubio.
Okay, so here's a question for you.
Unbeatable.
Here's a question. If it's Vance, how does it happen? Like, do they do a convention? Does Trump like pass a baton?
Well, I think that the hot rumor is that Rubio's going to sign on as Vance's VP right after the midterms, basically. Right, and then that makes a lot of sort of political sense for Marco, right? There are a lot of people who are trying to say that the Secretary of State should run against Vance. if you're just doing a game theory thing here, it doesn't make a lot of sense for Rubio to do that. If he runs against Vance and he loses in the primaries,
First we did the laugher curve, and now we're doing the game theory. Okay, keep going.
I mean, if you're evaluating his options, what you would figure is he runs against Vance, he loses, and now he's toast. He runs against Vance, and then Vance doesn't pick him for VP, and then Vance becomes president. He's toast. The only way that works out for him is somehow if he finishes second, but he's better off then, even if Vance picks him as VP and then loses. So that's definitely Rubio's best option. So I think they probably run a combined ticket. I think they foreclose primaries. I think no primaries.
But like if they sort of come out and say like we'd love to be president and vice president, and this is looking like how is that going to resolve it, right? There are other very ambitious Republicans in the Trump administration who might have a problem with it.
There are plenty of people who want to be president, like every United States senator, every governor, everyone basically. But who's got the juice to do it? You make the point, Ben, that maybe Newsom is kind of like DeSantis was in 24, and I see it. But the difference is there was Trump, and really, I know there was a primary in 2024. DeSantis is great. I love DeSantis. I never really thought for even 2 seconds that there was seriously a primary. Trump was a fait accompli. He was the man. He was the one they were prosecuting. He was the one they were raiding his hat. He was the man, and they jilted him, and he's just this world historic figure. There's nothing even close to that on the left right now. And so as a result, Trump remains the man. He's basically endorsed that ticket of Vance Rubio.
Yes.
And I think it is, look, there are plenty of people who want to repeal the 22nd Amendment, name Donald to be, Donaldus Magnus, Emperor the First,
Donaldus.
have it passed to Baron Octavian Augustus Trump, and, so on and so forth. Assuming that doesn't happen, Trump can crown Vance and Rubio, and I think that's the end of the story.
All right, but now I have a question for you. I have another question for you. Because we're in November of 2025, so it's a long time before the actual race kicks in. And in between now and then, we might have the tariff scheme collapse, depending on how the Supreme Court rules. It was ambiguous yesterday. It wasn't perfectly clear 2 days ago that it's going to go Trump's way. We might have eliminated the filibuster, which will be extremely controversial. And you're in favor of it?
The time has come. I would say, if you ask me, the time has come. You have to do it. And actually, the proof of that, look, I'm like a big defender of the filibuster and standards and norms and slowing things down. I've loved the filibuster, but politics is applying eternal principles to changing circumstances. The Democrats will do it. There is no question. The only reason they didn't last time is because of Manchin and Sinema. They're gone. These are people who celebrated when the most prominent proponent of civil debate in America was assassinated in 4K. These people will stop at nothing, and you get a real advantage if you're the party to do it first. They've been creeping toward it for years. It pains me to say it. I kind of like the filibuster in principle. Do it. Nuclear option. To quote George W. Bush, nuclear, get rid of the filibuster.
I have sort of a happy medium counter proposal, and it was actually put forward by our friend Jeremy Boring. I thought it was quite brilliant. What he suggested is that what Republicans should do, he said this a year ago, what Republicans should do is they should say to Democrats, let's do a constitutional amendment to enshrine the filibuster permanently, and if you won't do it, then we'll nuke it.
I like that.
Right? Because that's like, okay, either we're all on board or nobody's on board. We're not going to play this kind of take them on faith game, which I think is quite smart.
I am terrified about the loss of minority rights in the Senate, because
I agree with you.
Our team is going to be there soon enough, and we are going to be terrified at what those Dems are going to do to us.
It does give a big advantage to having a president who is of a different party than the Senate, which the public will catch on to eventually, so he can start to veto bills. It's going to mean, a lot more of people getting stuck, things getting stuck in Congress, which I'm totally in favor of. The less they can do, the more
Well, that's
I
the
like
thing.
it.
I mean, that was built in by the founders. They didn't want things to move quickly through the Senate. They wanted conflict. They wanted it to take forever. They wanted it to be really hard to pass legislation. They thought it would lead to strong arming and trying to get bipartisan, compromises done, and we just don't do that anymore. I think it is related to Citizens United, where money talks, and that's what everybody answers to. Who got them elected, and what do they want? They don't compromise anymore. So maybe you're right. Maybe different circumstances require different measures, but I really do not favor getting rid of the filibuster. What do you guys think? Do you want to get rid of the filibuster? Or no? How many who do not want to do it?
These are very wise, good-looking people. They understand. This is nuke it.
They got a lot of that. The Marxists will destroy us. No paying for Congress.
Don't pay Congress through the shutdown I heard out there.
It makes perfect sense.
Or ever, maybe.
So what is the biggest threat to a J.D. Vance Marco Rubio ticket actually winning?
What was the biggest?
What's the biggest threat to them actually
The biggest
winning?
threat is an economic downturn. It is not even close. So I'm very, very uneasy about the state of the economy right now. In fact, I think the best thing that could happen for the president is likely the Supreme Court striking down the tariffs. If that were to happen, then what you will actually see is some reduction in prices. You will see an explosion in investment, not in the top of the market. Right now,
Sorry, I don't know why your mic's doing
I'm
that.
not sure why. Right now, virtually all gains in the stock market are going to the Magnificent Seven, those top 7 stocks. If you take out the gains from the Magnificent Seven, the stock market has been flat for several years at this point. Everyone in the investment community is pouring money into AI, and I don't think it's going to pay off the way they think it's going to pay off. I think AI is a bubble.
I think that Trump is doing something really visionary, and I'm not sure he's doing it as according to a philosophy or just instinctively. But I think he is rearranging the American economy to be able to face off with China, which is going to be huge in about 3 years, if not shorter. The problem is, as he's doing that, he's not paying attention to this one thing that always is a president slayer, which is inflation. And he has not paid attention to that, and so the economy it's hard to read the economy.
His numbers are bad on it.
Yeah, and
It's really bad.
So he's getting blamed for Bidenflation, basically, and
Yeah.
that's what I think it played into a little bit in that election, not as much as people say. But I think that that's the thing. Will he turn at some point and say, we've got to bring down prices, we've got to stop it, because inflation is not high.
He
but
has to at
prices
least
are not going
look
down.
like that's his
Yes,
number one
yes.
priority.
Absolutely.
And
He's
right
done
now he
great with
doesn't
gas
look like
prices,
that.
but
That's
yeah.
why people are punishing him and all of us with people like Abigail Spanberger. I call her Melba. She's Melba Toast. I told you, how did they elect Melba in Virginia of all places? And not to get us started on Jay Jones, right? I mean, let's end it on this. And you can use my mic to answer it. But like, where do we stand now when we've actually seen here? I'll take it. Yeah, I don't know why that's not working. Where do we stand now when 2 months after Charlie's assassinated, the Democrats have elected somebody who's calling for assassinations of Republicans and their children? Like, how do we ever get along with these people? Do we try to get along with these people? Do we have dinners with these people? Do we try to compromise with these people? Do we just steamroll these people and do everything in our power to get Republicans elected here?
So, I think that we should define who these people are, because obviously I don't think every single Democrat is a person who wants to slit our throats. I mean, I think we all have extended family members who are Democrats. I'm sure we all have friends who we work with who have voted the other way. But there are certainly an enormous number of people. You're just too close to me, dude. Move away.
I want to get closer to you. I want to get closer.
I know you're like Klavan with AOC. I don't know what's going on right now. But
I can dream, can I?
But it seems to me that when we talk about they, one of the big obstacles to the possibility of a comedy in politics of people getting along is being too broad about who we're labeling. There for sure is a segment of Democrats who absolutely 100% celebrated Charlie Kirk's murder. We all saw it. We all know who they were. That's absolutely true. I don't think every single person who voted for Jay Jones was celebratory about his text, in the same way that I think that people, when they vote, tend to overlook, terrible things that their own side has done when they get into a binary race with another side. Again, that's not an excuse for voting for Jay Jones, who is a complete and utter piece of shit. But that is to say, I'm hesitant to malign every single person who votes in an election one way by saying that's the reason they voted for that specific thing. And so I think that it's incumbent on everybody to basically, right and left, say that people who do violence, obviously, are doing acts of evil, and it's evil. And I honestly, before Charlie's murder, I think that you saw this bizarre moment when Luigi Mangione murdered the United Healthcare CEO, where there were a group of people on both right and left. It was almost entirely left, but there were some people on sort of the populist right even who were saying, well, healthcare really is a problem. We should understand his points. It was like, no, we should absolutely not. We absolutely should not. And these permission structures for violence really need to end.
Yeah, I certainly agree. I know it's fashionable to say we need to hear all voices and we just need a totally open marketplace of ideas, but I'm a conservative man, I'm pretty traditional, and I just don't agree with that. I think that we need to get much more serious about standards and norms in the country. So when someone is threatening people, that's not protected speech. When someone's seriously inciting violence, there are all manner of speech that are not protected. Fraud, obscenity, fighting words. And so when that happens, we need to prosecute that. That's prosecutable for a reason. I'll go further, though. when, you know, I like a thriving marketplace of ideas, but you can't have a marketplace of ideas or any other thing if bandits keep shooting up the marketplace. And so, you know, we saw after Charlie was murdered, it was people who are very liberal were 8 times as likely to defend political violence as people who are very conservative. Almost 30% of young liberals would justify political violence. Many, many times what you saw for young conservatives. This is not sustainable. And so the people, whether they be in Congress, whether they be on TV, whether they be that girl you went to high school with on Facebook, if they are defending and celebrating the murder of an innocent man who just wanted to talk it out, they need to be ostracized from society. They need to lose their jobs, in many cases. They need to be excluded from polite society. I'm with William F. Buckley Jr. I love William F. Buckley Jr. One time he was having a debate on firing line with a guy named Leo Chern. And Chern said, well, Mr. Buckley, I think we can all agree an open society is conducive to all that we want. And Buckley, in his very Buckley way, sort of over this way, he said, I don't agree with that. He said, I want society to be considerably more closed. You know, I'm an epistemological optimist. I see no reason to defend the speech of a Nazi or a communist. And I'm with Buckley, and I think we ought to do it.
I actually think it's free speech that's going to save us. I think the thing that happened after Charlie, it was immediately exposed. The violence of the left has been hidden and masqueraded by the press. That power is gone. They have lost that power. And as long as we can disprove what they're saying in real time, which we now can, people are going to see pretty soon who is calling for death, who's calling for murder.
But aren't they going to elect Jay Jones, too?
You know, I'm not so sure about that. You know, there's so much goes into these local elections that I think, you know, he kind of rode to power on the coattails of the governor.
But the polls do show that some 30% of liberals think political violence is appropriate in some circumstances.
Absolutely. But I think as that comes out, they're going to start losing more elections. I'm actually really, I hate to say it, but I'm actually really optimistic about what's about to happen and what's happening now. I know.
You're the one? Is it because of Sydney Sweeney?
As I've said many times about Klavan, as Klavan draws closer to the death, he sees more light.
10 minutes left, you guys.
Listen,
Let's hurry it up.
I got to say this. I think everybody here has really stepped up in the wake of Charlie's assassination. I've watched you guys do it. We've done it ourselves. And that is something I feel really hopeful about. Everybody on our side of the aisle and all of you in showing up here tonight said, F that. We will not be silenced. We will not stop talking about these ideas. We'll say and double and triple down on all of our most controversial thoughts, just the way Charlie would have wanted. And I think he would be really proud that we're all here together tonight. Thank you. Thank you, guys. So grateful.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Megyn. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.
We love you. Thank you, Jacksonville. To be continued. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.